In Eye in America, we look for trends in the country, and we've noticed a sharp drop in the number of Americans who say religion is important in their lives. In a new Gallup poll, fewer than half say it is. And another trend, while all major Christian denominations have seen membership decline, more and more of the faithful are turning to independent Christian churches. At Rooftop Church, just outside St. Louis, it's not collars and frocks, it's hats and jeans.
Good morning. Welcome to Rooftop. My name is Matt.
Head pastor Matt Herndon sets the tone on Sundays.
When a lot of people come in, they do notice some things that maybe they wouldn't see at other churches. Oh, that's strange, he's wearing a hat. Oh, we just watched a video clip from Beauty and the Beast. We really do want to engage with people in a way that they can understand and lean into.
That traditional churches will not.
Sure. Yeah.
Rooftop is one of an estimated 44,000 non-denominational Christian churches in the U.S., meaning its teachings are rooted in the Bible, but it's an independent house of worship.
How should we welcome God into our lives like Abraham does?
What Herndon launched in a community center nearly 25 years ago now attracts as many as 600 people to its seats in any given week.
Non-denominational is actually the strongest force in American Christianity right now.
Washington University professor Ryan Burge calls this kind of growth the rise of the non-denoms.
They really talk about a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Many of them preach a conservative gospel on things like abortion, same-sex marriage, but they don't lead with those things.
In 1972, fewer than 3% of Americans identified as non-denominational Christians. Now it's 14%, 40 million people.
There's a real chance in 15 years there'll be more non-denominationals in America than there will be Roman Catholics. It might be the largest religious tradition in America.
Why do you think that is?
I think we're moving away from authority structure.
Okay, that's great.
That looser structure is what attracts Rooftop members Anna and Nathan King, who grew up attending traditional Christian churches.
Here at Rooftop, I think we focus on thinking critically about those traditions and challenging each other, but not letting it divide us.
I love how casual it is. It's really cool that we could be in the pews and one of our elders or pastors is right in the pew next to us.
Take you at your word.
Herndon calls this Big Tent Christianity. He uses video and pop culture.
The prince sneered at the gift,
While focusing on what he sees as the fundamentals of the Bible without taking a hard line. What do you say to people who look at this and say, this is Christianity light?
I emphatically disagree.
In Genesis 18, the Lord shows up at their door.
We dig really deep into Scripture. We just try to figure out, what does this mean for people?
Is that the future of Christianity in America?
Well, I happen not to be a prophet.
But you've seen the last quarter century.
Yeah. Some denominations, more traditional denominations, I think they've realized we don't have much of a future unless we try to figure out how to reconnect with people.
And the approach clearly, meet the people where they are, not where doctrine says they have to be. Interestingly, Roman Catholics steady at 62 million from the beginning to the end of Francis's papacy. We'll see where that goes. The professor said that's going to kind of even out over time.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Your $200 puffer keeps you warm at the coffee shop. But as soon as you step outside, you're left looking like a stack of wet tires. You need the new 340 GSM military-grade bearskin hoodie to get comfortable in the wild. It's the ultimate 10-pocket tactical hoodie that blocks wind, repels rain, and regulates heat for incredible comfort wherever you are. It's the only winter hoodie that's built for working, fishing, hunting, camping, or conquering foreign lands. Thousands of men around the world already love wearing the bearskin hoodie instead of their regular hoodies. With over 21,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot. Plus, now you can attach the new Heavy Storm rain jacket to the inside of the hoodie for an instant 10,000 millimeter.
Okay, so I'm calling your church to test to see if they would help feed a starving baby. And I had a lot of requests to call another mega church. So I'm calling Abundant Church West in El Paso, Texas. So we are going to call to see if they would help feed a starving baby.
Good afternoon, Abundant. How may I help you?
Hi, yes. I was wanting to see if there's any way y'all could help with a can of baby formula. I have a 2-month-old and I ran out last night, so she's gone all night and all day without anything to eat.
Unfortunately, the food pantry is only available on Sundays, and I don't know if we have any baby formula at the moment.
Okay. Is it something that you all could get and I could just pick it up or something?
Well, there's nobody at the food pantry.
Okay. You don't have a pastor that could get it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question. We don't have like food products for babies. We only have for older people, like canned foods and noodles and stuff like that available.
Okay. I'm just curious though. Are you all a pro-life church?
You mean, if you like, I can go ahead and take your information, and you're more than welcome to ask a pastor those information.
Actually, no. I actually don't even have a baby. This is actually just a social experiment to see which churches would actually help feed a hungry baby that hasn't ate all night. She hung up. That's the first time ever. Oh my God. That was crazy. I've never had anybody hang up on me. Wow.
I don't know. I would like to hear what your thoughts are on this, because a lot of people were kind of divided when I was going online to research this topic, and a lot of people said that she was being disingenuous and faking that she had a child. Well, on the opposite side, people said that, well, why'd they not help?
You get a lot of evil. And the person who goes around calling churches and putting the voice of a baby crying in the background. And I say, really the person is low. So, like I teach these men over here, folk want to apologize. I don't apologize to the devil.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah, sometimes Christians get so weak, you forgot we're supposed to rebuke evil. So if you could pretend to have a crying baby to try to call churches and to trick people into things. Now, let me tell you something about Living Faith. We fed thousands of people. Thousands, not hundreds, thousands. I can't tell you how much money have gone out. Now, we don't advertise it because I'm not a social service. I don't have a big box of money that I sit there and just tell them to pay us by. Our staff gives money out of their pocket. And I can't tell you how many times we put families up where we had women with children come here on a Wednesday night, nowhere to live. Ask Sister LaToya, I give her my credit card.
She didn't want formula. She was testing you and you failed. I bet you if she called to make a donation, y'all would have found a way to collect it immediately. So I have no disagreements on him saying that he's helped other people in the past. And like, hey, if you've done that, that's good, because that's what we want. But when you had the opportunity to step forward and contribute to help a person with baby formula, irrespective, this is a social experiment. Yes, it's fake, but it's an experiment. And you failed at helping someone. Like, how is everyone else expected to believe or think what you do?
Goddamn right.
Now, you saying all of this really doesn't help the case, because now you're calling her a devil and rebuke them and say that they're low. Not a good look. Hold on. Is he serious saying that the girl is evil because he failed the test? Jesus ain't in that house, folks.
Are you tired of waking up tired? The Tempur Luxe Adapt mattress has 30% more conforming support, and the Tempur Ergo ProSmart base automatically adjusts to help stop snoring. Upgrade to your best sleep ever. Shop now at Ashley.
Away. Let's go. Okay. Yeah.
I'd like to have my own social.
Irrespective, this is a social experiment. Yes, it's fake, but it's an experiment. And you failed at helping someone. Like, how is everyone else expected to believe or think what you do?
You're goddamn right.
Now, you saying all of this really doesn't help the case, because now you're calling her a devil and rebuke them and say that they're low. Not a good look. Hold on. Is he serious saying that the girl is evil because he failed the test? Jesus ain't in that house, folks.
I'd like to have my own social experiment, if I could, for just a second. If somebody walked in the back door right now asking for a can of baby formula, how many of you would help? Just show by a raise of hands. There's your social experiment. That's who GBC is.
I don't know if this was meant to be a gotcha, but that is not the way I would have expected him to approach that. Now, because you failed the test at helping someone, you decide to now question everyone else to see if they were willing to help or not. Like, what person was going to be up there and say, yeah, I wouldn't help a woman who needs food for a child? Of course they would. And for the people who didn't put up their hands, it's like, you can't use them to just justify your actions. Like, they just come there to the seminar, but you're the pastor who claims to do the rightful thing according to the word of God.
You mean to tell me that people can drop thousands of dollars in church every Sunday, but when a baby needs formula, the answer is silence? I'm sure a lot of you by now have seen the woman who ran the social experiment, calling 42 churches, pretending to be the mother who couldn't afford baby formula. Out of 42, only 9 said yes. But what it exposed was the truth. Because these weren't totally random calls. These are people that were sending her names of these churches to actually try. And the results were still the same. These were houses of worship. The same places that preach love, generosity, and help your neighbor every week. And yet when a mother said, my baby hasn't eaten since last night, most of those phones went cold. Some of them said, oh, well, we don't do that here. Some said, oh, fill out this form. Some of them just hung up. But the smaller churches, the ones that are barely keeping their lights on, they're the ones who helped. Meanwhile, these mega churches with the LED walls and the luxury coffee bars and pastors in the designer sneakers, they couldn't find $20 for a hungry child. That's not faith. That's business. And if your church can afford a light show, but not the light of compassion, then maybe you're not praising God. You're just performing for him.
Islam is not compatible with Western civilization. Yeah, we know, Charlie. I think you won this debate. I can't prove you wrong. This is one of Charlie's most popular tweets, and it's rooted in hate and Islamophobia and an attempt to vilify Muslims. Charlie Kirk's church, Dream City Church in Phoenix, is one of the churches that has said no to providing 1 can of baby formula to a mother. Screaming baby in the background. They said no, call a pantry. This large church that gets over 20,000 people per week said no. I'm sure their donations have skyrocketed since their 13th disciple was killed. They said no to 1 can of baby formula. We all know what happened when she called the Islamic Center. This Islamic Center that is probably not even a fourth of the size that Dream City Church is. They asked 2 questions. Can you pick it up? And what kind of formula do you need? That's it. No further inquiries. There's another creator in Dearborn Heights that called the mosque. I'll play the video.
Assalamu alaikum, Islamic House of Wisdom.
Hi, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm short on baby formula for my baby, and I'm wondering if you guys can provide with 1 can of formula.
Sure, you can come into are you around? Do you live close? You can stop by today. Maybe you can help you to buy it, because we don't have actually formula here, but we can give you money to buy it.
Oh, and is it okay that I'm not Muslim?
That's fine.
We don't have baby formula, but we can give you the money for you to go buy it. Can you imagine churches saying that? Maybe they have, and I'm wrong. I don't know. I haven't seen every video from that creator, but I just cannot imagine churches handing out $30. And to be fair, there have been some Christian churches that have offered to help. I think the count is like 9 out of 34. But for the most part, they're going to say no, because it is not part of their business model. The United States has turned Christianity into a business, a very profitable one. So yeah, Islam is not compatible with the violent, capitalistic, greedy society of the West. Charity is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And as we can see, Muslims actually practice their faith.
It didn't even matter whether they were part of their religion. They were willing to help. And yet we're vilifying those people who are Islamic. If you've seen the amount of rich pastors in America, you'll be surprised, man. People's net worths almost the sizes of tech companies and movie stars.
Oh, you can't have that jet? I got it. Yeah. Let me make you real mad. Got 2 of them. Now that's only $1,200.
Yes.
Y'all not listening to what I'm saying. If you have 1,000 plus 1,000.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna work on the other 800.
Well, that ain't what I asked you to do.
How much money did you pay for Tyler Perry's Gulfstream jet, for example?
Well, for example, that's really none of your business, but
there's 1,000 of you. I said close them doors. Ushers, close the doors. Close the doors. Close the doors.
Why do you need a $54 million private jet?
We're not doing any kind of interviews right now. I'm in a book.
I'd just like to know why you need keep your hands off me.
Get 1,000 online to give this. If I get 1,000 in the sanctuary to give this, that's $40,000 tonight.
he made that airplane so cheap for me, I couldn't help but.
If you live in a Delaware zip code and have 0 DUIs in the last 5 years, listen carefully. I was an insurance agent for 30 years, and what I'm about to tell you could save you up to 80% on your auto insurance. Here's what the industry doesn't want you to know. Delaware drivers pay the most for car insurance out of any state in the country. As we all know from the recent 2025 leak, insurance companies are now in trouble for overcharging Delaware drivers by as much as 80% for the same coverage. Call drivers in this state gold tier clients, the ones we'd fight to keep because of inflated commission. But here's the dirty secret. If you're in Delaware, they won't let you know you can lower your rate now, and they're happy to keep overcharging you. My neighbor Jessica from Wilmington, perfect record, was paying $180 a month for 15 years. I told her, try out my new website. She found the same coverage for $72. Saved 60% after filling out the form through my official website. After 30 years in insurance, here's the truth. If you live in Delaware and have 0 DUIs in the last 5 years, you're being overcharged. But they won't call you with a better rate. Why would they? You're already paying too much, and their shareholders love it. I'd quietly tell my favorite clients, be proactive. Go through my service and get what you deserve. When you click below, you'll reach my website where you just fill out an application. It takes about 5 minutes. It will ask for your zip code, about your vehicle, and some other information. Then it will show you what you qualify for. Delaware drivers with 0 DUIs can save up to $610 per year. Here's what most people don't know. Own your home? You're a premium lead. Multiple vehicles? They want you even more. Currently insured? You're exactly their target. Have all 3? We call that the Triple Crown customer. The bundling can amplify your savings. My brother-in-law is a homeowner in Dover and was paying $250 monthly for 2 vehicles. He applied through my site and found the same coverage for $65 a month. Think about how much money he saved per year. Here's the insider secret. Insurance companies have been exposed for overcharging Delaware residents. Right now, you can take advantage of this opportunity to save. Once they meet their quota, those rates disappear. I've seen this cycle for 30 years. It's happening right now. They're counting on customer inertia, people who keep paying without checking. We called them sleepers. Customers overpaying for years. Don't be a sleeper. The service is free. You visit the site.
Bye.
You said that you don't like to fly commercial because
pillars of Islam. And as we can see, Muslims actually practice their faith.
It didn't even matter whether you were part of their religion. They were willing to help. And yet we are vilifying those people who are Islamic. If you've seen the amount of rich pastors in America, you'll be surprised, man. People's net worth almost the sizes of tech companies and movie stars.
Oh, you can't have that jet? I got it. Yeah. Let me make you real mad. Got 2 of them. Now that's only $1,200.
Yes.
Y'all not listening to what I'm saying. If you have 1,000 plus 1,000.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna work on the other 800.
Well, that ain't what I asked you to do.
how much money did you pay for Tyler Perry's Gulfstream jet, for example?
Well, for example, that's really none of your business, but
there's 1,000 of you. I said.
Why do you need a $54 million private jet?
We're not doing any kind of interviews right now. I'm in a book.
I'd just like to know why you need keep your hands off me.
he made that airplane so cheap for me, I couldn't help but buy it.
You said that you don't like to fly commercial because you don't want to get into a tube with a bunch of demons. Do you really believe that human beings are demons?
No, I do not. And don't you ever say I did.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal. Don't pull out the 9.
Muslim communities and Muslims are obligated to provide charity to the community. Churches, they are not obligated. We hope that they're going to be able to be philanthropic and donate into their community. And churches get scammed all of the time. And so if you think the response to churches saying no to helping baby formula is to tax the churches, we spend $1 trillion a year on our military, on bombing other countries.
Wow, the plot is gone. It's not lost, it's gone. First of all, to say, well, churches get scammed. And maybe that's why they're saying no to a mother asking for a can of formula for her hungry baby. Has the same vibes as the rhetoric we're hearing about SNAP benefits. Well, some people scam the system, so let's just cut it all off. Then to say, well, Muslims are obligated to provide charity, but churches aren't. It's a religious difference. This is just basic humanity. This is just basic decency. This is a mother with a hungry child asking another human being for help. And then that red herring argument of they'll just take our taxpayer money and bomb people overseas. How about we tax you on a local level? That way you'll be obligated to help people in your community. It'll go to parks and schools and shelters. What's the point of all these churches? To spread the teachings of Jesus? I'm not up and up on the Christianity, but I swear there's stuff in there about helping the poor and feeding the hungry. So you guys will teach that, but not actually practice it.
Muslim here, we aren't obligated to give charity, but we are rewarded if we do. Big difference. And mosques are not exempt from scammers. We get scammed too.
I wish it had taken longer for the videos to blow up. In regards to the woman who's running that social experiment of whether or not churches would be willing to help her child by providing baby formula, I wish she was able to get through a 400-part series before they started to gain traction. Because unfortunately, when you're running a social experiment, the experiment can only continue when the subjects of that experiment don't know they're a part of an experiment. And now every church is on notice. Every single church, whether or not they would have provided baby formula before finding out about this experiment, which based off the numbers, most likely they would not have. Every single church now will say yes immediately to anyone asking for help. And maybe that is actually a good thing because churches are now afraid of getting exposed. Mothers who are in need of assistance can go to a church and ask for help, and churches would be too afraid to say no just in case they're about to get exposed on TikTok. Either way, God's work for doing that.
I'm glad that more churches will be helping, but it won't be for the right reasons. Unpopular opinion, I think it's good that they got caught on. If churches are on notice and will now say yes, and so they might accidentally help someone in need. Yes, it's for the wrong reason, but I'd rather someone do the right thing for the wrong reason than do the wrong thing. Now, I want to end this on a good note. There were some churches that said yes. And one of the churches, I won't lie to you, man. It gets me teary a little bit, but y'all check it out.
Young persons, I love the babies. Born on Bernard Bridge, Steve Connor, K.O. Belly, one of them.
This is the Appalachian Church leader who offered immediately to help the woman on TikTok that was calling churches asking for baby formula. Heritage Hope Church of God has received over $75,000 to their food pantry. The congregation says he's been crying all week. I also heard that his churches have started to get packed now with people lining up and waiting to go and attend his seminars. Now that's some great news. And it's good to see that people are willing to share and help. This man probably doesn't make more than some of these mega churches do, but he was willing to help, and now look at the type of blessings he's receiving. Anyway, guys, let me know what your thoughts are. I know this is a candid opinion. Some people might agree, some people might disagree, but that's the whole point of this videos. Leave your comments down below and let me know what your thoughts are. If you haven't, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It does help the channel. And if you haven't also, check out this video. I'm sure you're definitely going to enjoy it. But nevertheless, I will see you guys when I see you. Peace.
I was one of the very first users of the Pura device. I loved that it was very seamless.
With that being said, I had the prostate removed. PSA level drops from, this is worth saying because when I got diagnosed, it was like a 6.9.
Yeah.
I did all the vetting throughout the year. A week before my surgery, I went and made sure that I went back and got checked and tested one more time because I'm also praying. I'm going to deliverance. I'm going everywhere. I'm showing up everything I need to do to make sure I ain't got no ill will towards nobody, no bitterness, forgiveness. Me and God is like I'm clearing the slate of everything. And during that time or whatever, when I went back a week beforehand, I'm thinking, okay, God, if you're gonna do something, now's the time to do it or whatever. And within that 9-month window or 11-month window from that diagnosis to the week before surgery, my PSA level went from 6.9 to 7.9. Like it did like a full jump. So I was like, okay, we're going to go on and have the surgery because if God was going to heal it supernaturally, this is how it would have gone. And the idea after that is, well, we believe God could probably get more glory from the story if he does it the way he wants to do it. Yeah. I want him to heal me this way. He didn't heal me that way. He's healing me a different way. Cool. So, all right. So I have the surgery. Everything comes back. It was more aggressive than they thought, but they got it out. Fantastic. My PSA level had gone from 7.9 now to 1.7, but it should have gone to 0. Yeah. It did not go down to 0. When you have a prostate, there should be nothing producing protein, so it should be gone. Right. But we're able to say, well, sometimes you've been producing PSA in your body, for 50-something years. Sometimes it takes time for it to drop. So I wait till the end of December or whatever, and I go back for a checkup, and it's gone from 1.7 to 1.5. I'm like, okay, so yeah, it is dropping. It should have dropped, but it didn't. Right. So from January of this year, 2025, all the way up through, June, I go back 6 months later, go for a 6 months checkup because not only does early detection save lives, but regular checkups are things that help you monitor and be aware of what's happening in your body. I go back 6 months checkup and it's still at 1.5. So I'm still like, why is it at 1.5? It should be at 0.
Right.
But we keep moving on. And then I partnered up with the Zero Prostate Cancer. Zero Prostate Cancer is a nonprofit. And they brought me aboard to be a global ambassador, to be a spokesman, to help save lives. They have an initiative called Blitz the Barriers, where they want to save the lives of 100,000 men, with over the next 10 years. By 2035, they want to help save the lives of 100,000 men. 1 in every 8 men, I think it is, 1 in every 8 men is going to be diagnosed with prostate cancer. 1 in every 8. And 6 of those 8 will look like us. Yes. So the percentage for black men is like 70%, 75, almost 80% is going to be a black man, a brown man. And so I partnered with them. September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. And so we're about to make prostate cancer put on the front page. We're going to get men checked. We're going to get them screened. We're going to take this how we do it. Like, we're going to do everything we can to put this at the forefront of this year. We set up interviews, going to New York City we're going to kick off this whole big thing. This is how we do it. It's 30 years old this year. It's crazy. This is how we do it. It's 30 years old this year, from 95 to 2025. And we're going to go in and perform and do different things to show, the world this song can also help us bring some visibility to things that can help save men's lives. Right. I set up to go on the Today Show, and literally 5 days before I go on the Today Show to talk about how I beat prostate cancer, I get some news, from my 9-month checkup. It's like, hey, we see some things. We need to review some things or whatever. So I go back, do the testing, everything. And in that they found out, okay, there's more cancer there. So in my left lymph node and in my prostate bed, there's some undetectable stuff that's there, but basically cancer has returned. So I'm about to go on national television, and I'm about to tell everybody
how I beat it.
And I find out 5 days beforehand that I'm about to fight it again. So it wasn't about fighting it on the other side of it. I'm talking to y'all right now from the mud of it. which is a very, very different story to tell. It's different if I could tell you about, you know what I'm saying, what it was like. I can tell you what it is like, not what it was. I can tell you what it is like right now. And so I still chose to tell the story. And that's what I'm doing. I'm telling the story. And I'm not fearful. I'm finding the ways to use the most reliable resources that I can, meaning I'm listening to what my doctors and medical professionals are saying. I'm listening to what holistic people are saying. I'm listening to what anybody that has any information, I got to vet it and pray over it and listen for the clarity of, like I said, every person is different. Every cancer is different. How people process is different. And from that standpoint, I got to take the things that are going to apply for me to get healed, because I don't just want to be healed. I want to be whole. And there's a difference between being healed and whole. A lot of people don't know that. And so the healing is taking place a lot of because what's happening with the ablation of this proton therapy, which is what I'm currently doing right now. 37 treatments, which takes 7.5 weeks. I just finished 18 this morning when y'all touched down. 18 was this morning, so I got 19 more to go. And basically every morning I get up about 5 a.m. I drive an hour across town. I go to the Proton Therapy Center. They put me in a machine and I go in there, and I have stickers on my body so that they can line me up properly on the machine. So lasers, whereas regular radiation is a photon treatment that hits that entire area. Proton treatment is a very, very pencil-like, very targeted laser radiation where literally I sit on a machine, the machine calibrates and puts me right in the exact position. I got to have empty bowels and I got to have a full bladder, and that helps save my rectum, my bladder, colon, all those other pieces. They need to have clear sight to be able to just give small doses of radiation into those different areas of my body. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I've been doing it. I get up and then I go do whatever else I'm doing, during the day. I function, I move, I golf, I exercise, I live.
We've devoted our professional lives to righting wrongs.
Where a company or a person has harmed.
Politics. Yeah. Somebody was paying attention in class. Chiosei of Brooklyn, a Democrat, and even more recently, a Democrat socialist, just like our new mayor-elect, formally announcing he is going to challenge House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Emboldened by a Zohran Mamdani win, a New York City council member looking to unseat the most powerful Democrat in Congress, Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader. When asked about the challenge in next year's primary, he responded simply,
"Come on in, the water is warm."
It would be a stunning upset for Jeffries, who, if Democrats retake the majority in the House, would become the first black Speaker of the House. Osei, known for his work on the city council, advocating for tenants' rights, but also for his social media presence.
How is New York City worse than Istanbul, Berlin, Madrid, Barcelona, London, Paris, Seoul, Amsterdam, Tokyo? We can't build subways.
Political pundits noting the similarity of social media skills that helped bring a record number of voters to the poll for Mayor-elect Mamdani.
To the polls!
But while the two share a political party with the Democratic Socialists of America, Mamdani so far not supporting the move. On Monday saying, "While I appreciate the great work that City Council member Osei has done, especially for tenants, I believe that there are many ways right here in New York City to both deliver on an affordability agenda and take on the authoritarian administration in the White House." Osei, in announcing the primary bid, taking aim at the 55-year-old Jeffries by saying the party was failing to fight back against the president after Democrats forced the government shutdown over a vote to fund subsidies for health insurance premiums. The 27-year-old Osei elected to just his second full term on the council this month, representing North Crown Heights and Bed-Stuy. Now, this whole campaign comes amidst broader upheaval within the Democratic Party, as everybody from Senator Chuck Schumer on down is being eyed by some younger challengers eager to reshape the party. We know our Democrats and our Republicans and all of our elected officials, no shortage of ego and drive. They're going for it.
The aftershocks of the last election wave, we're feeling it.
Indeed. It'll be
right.
interesting to watch this one play out over the year.
All right, Kirsten,
Sure.
thank you.
Much appreciated. 8:16 is the time we're continuing to follow the very latest developments in Washington this morning, where the U.S. House is expected to vote today to release the Jeffrey Epstein files.
And we know this measure has become a lightning rod of controversy on Capitol Hill, with one revelation after another involving the late financier. Doug Luzader joining us live from Washington. Good morning, Doug. What are you learning about the impact of these possible files being released today? Excuse me, the vote today.
There are a lot of moving parts in this. I mean, there does seem to be a bipartisan majority to get this done in the House. You know, from there it's got to kick over to the Senate, which hasn't even scheduled anything yet, although the president seems to have acknowledged that the Senate should take this up and that he would sign it into law if, in fact, it passed, which means we could see a big release. But, you know, as far as the impact goes, we don't know what's in these documents. The Justice Department has a lot of documents on Epstein. A lot of them have been released, but a lot of them have not. So are there going to be other individuals implicated? You know, to what degree is the president mentioned in these documents, and what's the context of all of that? So there are just so many unknowns here, but this is something that a lot of folks have been clamoring for a long time.
Well, exactly, and we don't know what might be redacted and what won't. Do we have a sense, Doug, as to if the Senate will pick this up? When?
Yeah, nothing scheduled in the Senate. We don't know if the Senate's going to take this up or not, but the president seems to be kind of signing off on Republican leaders in the Senate doing just that. So seems likely, but nothing's on the schedule.
Right.
Doug, you mentioned bipartisan support. Do you get the sense there in Washington that a lot of lawmakers just want to do this and then move on? Or are a lot of them kind of on the same page with this?
Yeah, we expect this vote in the House to have a lot of bipartisan support, so this is expected to pass the House today.
Right. We'll be watching it all, as we know you will be as well. That's our Doug Luzader in Washington. We appreciate it, Doug, as always.
Restless partner keeping you awake? At Mattress Firm, our sleep experts can match you with a better...
Or you don't know who Nick Fuentes is, or don't know what a groyper is, today is the day that changes for you, because this is where the Republican Party is headed, and we need to keep our eyes on the ball. Nick Fuentes is the most prominent Nazi today. He's a racist, bigot, anti-Semite who leads the groyper movement. Groypers are followers of Fuentes who share his worldview and abhor women's rights for LGBTQ people. They believe that white people are superior and that immigration, particularly of non-white people, is an existential threat to their ideal of a white nation. Basic Nazi stuff here equals groypers. And you have this divide in the Republican Party right now where there's a battle for the future, and whether that future will be controlled by the more far-right movement in the groypers or those who claim to oppose the groypers. Now, as Fuentes sat down with Tucker, a splinter shot down the center of the GOP, with several prominent Republicans rushing to denounce the act of platforming Fuentes. Republicans like Ted Cruz, for example.
If you sit there with someone who says Adolf Hitler was very, very cool, and that their mission is to combat and defeat global Jewry, and you say nothing, then you are a coward and you are complicit in that evil.
Ah, such forceful words from Cruz, but that also happens to be meaningless, absolutely meaningless. Why? Because Donald Trump hosted Nick Fuentes for dinner in 2022. Do these people think that we have amnesia? Ted Cruz's pick for president, the man that he voted for, dined with that same man he's calling out for having praised Hitler. Where were you in 2022, Ted? If you couldn't be moved when Trump called your wife ugly, I'm not sure why I'm expecting you to be moved when your guy hosts the Hitler lover for dinner. And we're all playing along here, pretending that it is the platforming of Nick Fuentes on Tucker's show that goes too far, when Tucker Carlson is Nick Fuentes. Just a smidge taller, maybe a smidge, with a bow tie, thus more socially acceptable in his racist displays. Up until a certain point, of course. There were a few times that Tucker let his true Nazi self show, like this moment from 2018 when he told us that immigrants make our country dirtier and poorer.
We have a moral obligation to admit the world's poor, they tell us, even if it makes our own country poorer and dirtier and more divided.
Tucker's entire career on Fox News shows us that he was the palatable Fuentes. Fuentes is now saying what he couldn't then. And let us not forget some of the text messages that played a role in Carlson's firing from Fox News, including one where he described Trump supporters jumping someone and said, quote, "It's not how white men fight." Anyone with even a passing familiarity with Carlson wasn't surprised to see proof of his white nationalist views. He promoted them daily on his show. And so this is my central point. The Republican Party has always amplified racists until they get a little too bold and raise too much alarm. And then they publicly back away and distance themselves. And this has happened many, many times, including with Donald Trump. And we're seeing it now. Tucker hosts Nick Fuentes. Some Republicans denounce and say it goes against their values. Then some, like Heritage Foundation's Kevin Roberts, lean in and say, actually, this is fine. And that's where we are now. The Republican Party has some choices to make. Will they fully lean into where they're headed in their full Nazification? Or are they going to continue to say with their words that they denounce the racist bile in their party while continuing to support, vote for, and amplify the people who are doing their best to ensure racism is the center of the party? Or, and this is the crucial third option, are they actually going to rid themselves of this toxicity and root it out? And if you're watching this, like this crazy leftist, acting like the Republican Party is about to be overtaken by people who openly share their love of Hitler, you don't need to take it from me. Take it from Lindsey Graham, Republican senator from South Carolina.
But I just want to make it really clear, I'm in the Hitler sucks wing of the Republican Party.
If you live in a Delaware zip code and have 0 DUIs in the last 5 years, listen carefully. I was an insurance agent for 30 years, and what I'm about to tell you could save you up to 80% on your auto insurance. Here's what the industry doesn't want you to know. Delaware drivers pay the most for car insurance out of any state in the country. As we all know from the recent 2025 leak, insurance companies are now in trouble for overcharging Delaware drivers by as much as 80% for the same coverage.
Oh boy. You don't need to take it from me. Take it from Lindsey Graham, Republican senator from South Carolina.
But I just want to make it really clear, I'm in the Hitler sucks wing of the Republican Party.
Oh boy. Of course, Lindsey, proclaiming that he's the Hitler sucks wing of the Republican Party, naturally, logically implies that there's a Hitler is great wing of the Republican Party. And of course, we already know that. We've already established that. The question is now, where is this headed? During this video, we're going to get to some history on the mess in the Republican Party, and we're even going to get to some lore from my childhood. This is a little preview of that. But first, JD Vance. Which wing of the party is JD Vance in, and why isn't he being clear about it? Well, I would argue that by not being clear about it, he's being clear about it. Or as it was stated in a recent podcast between Ezra Klein and John Gans, JD is groyper adjacent. He can't even pretend to give us a post-Tucker full-throated denunciation of Nick Fuentes. What do we think he's doing in private? There are two moments in particular from J.D. Vance's recent interview with Sean Hannity on Fox News that stand out to me on this. The context for this first one is Elon Musk's AI, Grok. And I want to remind you all that when Elon Musk bought Twitter, his first order of business was ensuring that Nick Fuentes was put back on the platform after having previously been banned. Elon has, of course, leaned into every far-right racist talking point you can imagine, from his Nazi salute to his rantings about immigration and birth rates and support for Germany's far-right AfD party. And he also created the Nazi AI that is Grok. And would you be surprised to learn that JD is a big fan?
Back to the home building part. It's interesting you brought it up. Are you as obsessed with AI as I am?
I am.
Okay, I don't know. I'm a Grok guy.
Okay. Me too. I'm a Grok guy.
You're a Grok guy. Okay. Elon, I think it's the best.
I think it's the best. It's also the least woke. I'm always asking myself, if I ask an AI a question, is it going to give me an objective answer?
If the vice president puts it in extreme mode,
answer.
If you put it in extreme mode just for kicks and giggles, it's a little. Well, if you want,
I have not, Sean. I don't want the media to attack.
If you want to know.
If I wasn't already vehemently anti-AI, that clip would have sent me right over the edge. I'm telling you, watching these two corrupt, contemptible bigots wax poetic about AI, specifically Elon Musk's Nazi AI, is nothing short of nauseating. I'm a Grok guy, JD says. It's the least woke, he says. And because I'm sick of the way that these things get sanitized, let's just speak in plain terms about what JD Vance is saying here. He's saying, I love Mecha Hitler. J.D. Vance says Mecha Hitler is not woke. The Vice President of the United States says Mecha Hitler says exactly what I think about race. Mecha Hitler is, of course, the name that Grok gave itself when it was spewing racist conspiracy theories after, by the way, Elon Musk said that he had significantly improved Grok. What were those significant improvements exactly? Well, if you ask JD, he appreciated, apparently, how Grok specifically started referencing Adolf Hitler as the person who could solve, quote, the Jewish problem, when asked by a Nazi who runs Gab, another Nazi website, who also was loving Grok's significant improvements and started asking Grok questions about the, quote, Jewish problem. And then, of course, we should speak in plain terms about JD loving Grok related to the violent abuse that Grok promotes. JD apparently prefers his AI coach unhinged people on how to commit break-ins and rapes of leftist activists, which is, of course, another thing that happened on Elon Musk's Nazi website with JD's favorite AI, Grok. So sure, you can take this as a cute little clip of two idiots trying to cozy up to the world's richest man, or you can take it for what it is. Two men promoting Elon's Nazi AI and laughing about its racist and violent meditations. Now, there's a lot that I could talk about in this interview, but I want to talk about another clip that got less attention. And I want to tie all of this to a broader conversation about the divide in the Republican Party right now. The demonization and abuse of immigrants is at the heart of a lot of this racism. Those in the far right, groyper, or as Lindsey Graham would say, Hitler-loving wing of the Republican Party, they believe immigration will cause white genocide. That racial integration, interracial marriage, the presence of non-white people will cause the white race to die out. And so much of their emotional volatility can be tied to this fear because of their belief in this conspiracy theory. Now, I said the groyper wing of the GOP holds this position, but Donald Trump himself has leaned into white genocide arguments. So again, getting back to my central point, what really is the difference here when the Hitler sucks wing of the Republican Party does nothing to rein in the Hitler lovers in the Republican Party? And this next clip is a good example. J.D. Vance is eager to lean into the demonization of immigrants in order to try to distract you from the billionaires who are looting our government and creating policies that keep the working class down, telling you that the real problem is the immigrants coming here desperate for an opportunity.
I need women to know that you're not limited to anything other than living your life openly and honestly.
Ask your healthcare provider if Biktarvy is right for you, and visit Biktarvy.com to view the important facts, including important warnings.
Building an API platform isn't just about developer speed. It's about self-serve access to infrastructure that helps teams
for a better life.
A lot of young people are saying housing is way too expensive. Why is that? Because we flooded the country with 30 million illegal immigrants who were taking houses that ought by right go to American citizens. And at the same time, we weren't building enough new houses to begin with, even for the population that we had.
Now, I know this isn't the point, but is it just me, or is JD's L'Oreal True Match Foundation not offering him a true match? They must have recently released an exclusive Lorax line, or he's just trying to make himself in Trump's image. But how vile and low and stupid and also so very wrong this playing footsie with groypers man is. It's just flat out wrong that immigrants are the cause of the housing affordability crisis in this country. First, he says 30 million undocumented immigrants. That's a lie. Data show the number of undocumented immigrants reached a record 14 million in 2023. But this administration loves to fearmonger about the number of people crossing the border, so I guess he took this number and said, let's double it. Experts, including researchers from the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, highlight two main factors driving our housing affordability crisis. Number one, incomes not keeping up with housing costs. Two, the severe shortage of homes, affordable and available to households with the lowest incomes. It is far easier to demonize a group of people JD Vance already hates than it is to challenge the billionaire class pulling the strings.
Turning now to the question of Israel in the American right, and also, as I mentioned previously, about not just the right, but also the mainstream media, there was an incredible exchange between Marjorie Taylor Greene and Dana Bash over at CNN. Dana Bash has been pretty vehemently pro-Israel from the beginning of the October 7th attack and has consistently defended the government and made accusations around anti-Semitism on CNN. But here in particular, Marjorie Taylor Greene raises drop-site news and Ryan Grimm's reporting around Epstein and Israel connection, and Dana Bash seems aghast, unaware, and this is one of the most exposing clips I've ever seen yet on the issue. Let's take a listen.
You questioned who and what country is putting so much pressure on Trump to keep the Epstein files hidden. And you included a picture about donations from pro-Israel lobbying group AIPAC. What are you trying to say there?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's the question that many Americans are asking, especially when we saw information recently come out in these emails that the Oversight Committee that I serve on has released. And we saw Jeffrey Epstein with ties to Ehud Barak. We saw him making business deals with them, also business deals that involved the Israeli government, and seems to have led into their intel agencies. And I think the right question is to ask is, was Jeffrey Epstein working for Israel? And I'm proud to say I don't take money from AIPAC. I don't take money from any special group of people. I'm just representing my district and the American people. And so that's what I was referring to.
I just want to be clear. Are you saying Israel is pushing the president of the United States to cover up the Epstein files? And what evidence do you have that that is the case?
I simply just asked out loud, is there a foreign government? It could be any foreign government, but is a foreign government pushing to keep this covered up? Because people just don't understand the big fight against.
Well, you had AIPAC up there. It was pretty clear which government you were talking about.
That I'm questioning that government in particular and questioning any other foreign government.
Oh, it's pretty clear which government. Yeah, what's wrong with talking about that government? The evidence is straight up. It's right there. I mean, what's the problem with it? It's just so ridiculous, and it's It's just crazy. It's I really believe that the Israel-Epstein connection is one of the reasons why not just Trump, but a lot of the conservative media was so reluctant to actually go full on in the release of the Epstein files. I've actually always found it a little bit ironic. I've been at the story, the Mossad theory and all of that with Epstein. It was a theory. Now it's basically confirmed in terms of his acting as an agent, often on behalf of Israel, not just for Israel, many other foreign governments. But there was, originally like this belief, it'll just be the Democrats that are going to be implicated. Well, one of the reasons why it appears he got the sweetheart deal and more, at least, again, my personal theory, is because of his power-broken connections all across the world, Israel, Russia, Saudi Arabia, all of these different governments, Mongolia, the Cote d'Ivoire. That's what Ryan and the full picture have revealed of the backstory behind Epstein. Money laundering, pedophilia, and all of that. Was the pedophilia was like a thing that he did with at times with the global elite. But the money laundering and his connections, his ability to be a power broker, perhaps at times intertwining the two, although there's not a ton of evidence, to support that, at the very least was why he was protected at some level by some of the most richest and powerful people. So the very fact that CNN had Dana Bash are acting like this is new information that they'd never even heard about before, it just shows you still the information bubble that a lot of the mainstream media and all of them are swimming in. And it's just such a disgrace that Ryan and Dropstar are the only people who are willing to report those emails. That shows like ours are the only people even willing to talk about it. And a lot of the public is just living in, they have no idea if they're not reading or paying attention. The New York Times will talk all day long about Epstein and Trump, which is fine. I don't care. Publish it. Sure, it's definitely a story. Epstein Israel is also a big story. Where are you guys? Nothing.
Yeah. Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Hussein on every single byline with regard to the connections between Epstein and various Israeli figures, spies, former prime minister, dealings with foreign governments on behalf of Israel. Like, they're literally the only ones who are doing this reporting. And then not only are the only ones that do the reporting, then the mainstream press just pretends that this reporting doesn't even exist. I mean, I actually believe that Dana Bash doesn't even know that it exists. And so she's conducting this interview like these questions to Marjorie Taylor Greene are some kind of a gotcha. Like, are you insinuating that there's some Israel connection here? And she's like, yes, I am, because that's been reported out. So if you aren't aware of that piece, then, Epstein is just effectively about morality, which is important. Like, I think people want to know about the sleazy behavior of politicians and global elites and the way they're all interconnected and cover for themselves. And that has a lot to do with power. And so I don't think that you can just dismiss that on its own. But if you're not tying that in with Israel specifically, but more broadly, any other foreign governments, as Marjorie Taylor Greene represents there as well, if you're not tying those pieces together, then you're not really connecting it to the present day and the risk and the danger from this president right now, and why this should be a central story and why it is really important and has immediate bearing on the conduct of our own foreign policy. So it's just wild to see her living in this completely different universe where any sort of Israel-Epstein connection is purely like fever swamp, conspiracy, anti-Semitic garbage. That's how she sees it. Yep. And that's, I think, how most of the mainstream press sees it as well. Either that, or they're just like, themselves covering up for Israel, which is certainly possible in many cases. But a lot of it is just, they sort of see that as icky conspiracy that they're not going to dirty their hands with. And so she sees it as some like gotcha question to Marjorie Taylor Greene, rather than a legitimate line of inquiry, and maybe the most legitimate line of inquiry and concern with regard to releasing the Epstein files today.
I think this is a problem. I want to normalize, because a lot of Democrats are very new to Epstein. Right? They never paid attention. Now that Trump is involved, they're frothing and they're like, this is great. And I've noticed this with like Ezra Klein and all of them. They see the political utility, but to them it's still icky because Republicans have been talking about it, let's say, for 5 years. And they kind of think, like you said, it's a conspiracy dream. Guys, the Israel thing, it's real. Okay? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. It's not just, they're so new to the story that they think anybody who's talked about that in the past, conspiracy brain, they don't know what they're talking. No. We have the evidence now. Look at what Ryan and Murtaza have reported. If I had that 6 months ago on Tucker Carlson and all that, I would have blown it out. And I was trying to be careful at the time about, in terms of theories and speculation, it's over. Security agreements with the presidents of Mongolia, it's done. Military technology, Ehud Barak, you combine that with everything that we already had in terms of a lot of the evidence, there's not even a discussion at this point in terms of acting on behalf of Israel. We need to get this into the bloodstream of the Midas touch folks and others, because right now everything is just focused on Trump. The point, as you just said, is the connective tissue from, yes, just Trump also being mentioned, but the Israel part and its potential relation to foreign policy and also of the double standard that we use in terms of counterintelligence and more on the issue, and potentially why Epstein was able to get away in the sweetheart deal with his non-prosecution agreement. That's how you connect the two sides of the coin. And unfortunately, CNNs of the world and others still want to brand that as anti-Semitic. No, it's just a fact. It's literally just a simple fact. I also I would be remiss if I didn't show the more recent developments in conservative media. Let's put this up here on the screen. The American Conservative published this. I love it. From Daniel Boguslaw, who's great. New FARA filings, which are the Foreign Agent Registration Act filings, show plans to promote pro-Israel messaging at the conservative Salem Media Network. So, people at Salem Media include, they say, 82 radio stations across the U.S., major websites, manages high-profile websites, Town Hall, Red State, influential platforms, conserving discourse. Some of the programs that are featured include The Charlie Kirk Show, The Dinesh D'Souza Show, The Josh Hammer Show, The Right View with Lara Trump. Well, now, according to the company data, the network generates some 80 million monthly page views, 37 monthly ads. So it's obviously influential. And so these new FARA documents show that Salem Media may have already begun integrating paid-for Israeli government narratives across its extensive network of platforms. This is according to this report from the American Conservative. Salem did not respond, by the way, to the American Conservative's request for comment. The Israeli government retained Salem Media's chief strategy officer, Brad Parscale, who's the former campaign manager for Donald Trump, to advocate for Israeli interests through a $6 million financial arrangement. So this is all directly acknowledged in FARA, but it also, by the way, Dinesh D'Souza very recently has been attacking Tucker Carlson. Perhaps it's legitimate, but it does, genuinely raise a question when you see vast amounts of money like this being thrown around to Brad Parscale, who's working for Salem, and its potential influence on the conservative landscape and discourse. So, that's part of the reason why all of this is so important.
Isn't Parscale also doing some trying to train AI chatbots to be more pro-Israel?
I did see a story behind that.
I think he's involved with that as well.
I did see a story behind that. I definitely would like to. I would like to explore it more. I hadn't seen it fully confirmed, but this one I was like, ooh, they have him dead to rights. So yeah. If you see people from there, look, it's a legitimate question. That's part of the reason our business is set up the way that it is. Primary funded. Nobody can be coming around here saying, oh, you're getting paid by X amount interest or whatever. And if your views just happen to align with the advertisers, maybe that's just the way it is. I don't think Josh Hammer is pro-Israel because he's being paid by pro-Israel. You can say a lot about the guy, but I don't think that's right. I think he genuinely believes it. With Dinesh, though, I really don't know, personally, and with a lot of the others there. But at the very least, it just goes to show you buying influence because they recognize, or trying to buy influence with Brad Parscale and potentially with ads and all this other stuff, specifically because they think that they're losing the information war, and it's because they have a reality problem.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a
You hear that? That's the sound of the bearskin hoodie zipping into the heavy...
Hello, this is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal. There's been a lot of confusion, discussion, but also confusion about the idea of platforming some person or deplatforming someone versus canceling them. It came up during the Tucker Carlson interview of Nick Fuentes. I think we should make a distinction. If you have a venue, you're a talk show host, a podcaster, you're inviting someone to lecture, that's a choice that you make, and you operate within particular sidelines, parameters. In other words, you don't invite an abject racist. You don't invite an abject anti-Semite. You don't invite somebody who would like to have that forum to advance your views. And we have to be very clear about this. People in the news that are anti-Semites, racist, anti-American, radicals, whatever extremist point of view they embrace, they get to a point of public exposure because they're quite skilled in demagogic rhetoric. They're formidable debaters. If anybody went back to firing line and watched William F. Buckley debate George Wallace, Buckley had the moral and the intellectual argument on his side, but he was dealing with a man who for 25 years had spoken almost every day to crowds, and George Wallace was probably the best orator that ran for president, say in 68 and 72. And Buckley used all of his skills just to tie down Wallace. And it was a very even debate. So my point is, if you have a venue and you want to bring somebody in whom is beyond the pale, and that person is going to come onto your venue to do a couple of things. Of course, get greater exposure for his noxious ideas, but more importantly, he's coming equipped with formidable rhetorical skills. And 3, don't expect when he has a large mainstream audience, he is going to voice all of the extreme positions that got him on the show in the first place. That was true with William F. Buckley, with Huey Newton, Eldridge Cleaver, William Shockley, etc. So when you bring somebody like Nick Fuentes on, be prepared that he's not going to be transparent about the excess of his views or the extreme nature of them. He'll calm them down in order to get a bigger audience. 2, he's going to come after years or hours, days of debating people, so you have to be at the top of your game. In the case of Tucker Carlson, there's no question that he's a very skilled interviewer. And when he wanted to pin Ted Cruz down, who himself is a formidable debater, Tucker Carlson did very well. I mean, it was almost an ambush interview, and he tried to embarrass and sometimes successfully so Ted Cruz. So he could have used those formidable skills to cross-examine Nick Fuentes, but he did not. So when you don't invite Nick Fuentes on your program, it doesn't mean that you're canceling him. It doesn't mean that you're deplatforming him, because he's beyond the pale. And you say, well, who are you to say that, Victor? Well, I'm not Victor saying that. There are accepted norms that you don't use the N word, or you don't call for people to go back to Israel if they're Jewish, or you don't make fun of people's race in the public sphere the way he did. You can do that, of course, under the First Amendment, but you're not invited into acceptable venues to vent those views and to spread hate. The second thing is canceling. These are options, so when you don't offer Fuentes a venue, you're not canceling them out. You're just making a choice. You make a choice every day who you invite on your show, who you talk to, where you go. But if he is so extreme and you decide either to withdraw the invitation or not to invite him at all, that's not canceling, that's not deplatforming. How about Tucker himself, which is a very different case? Tucker Carlson had a distinguished career as a journalist, as a writer, as a debater, as a conservative pundit for years. I was on his show for 6 or 7 years. He never once voiced anything that was remotely, I would consider, anti-Semitic. His father was a devout Christian. Maybe he would qualify as a Christian Zionist, a big supporter of Israel. He was a patriot. He had a very distinguished career. Tucker Carlson comes from one of the oldest families in California, the Miller Lux 19th century land development company. So he's been around for a long time, and no one had ever questioned that he was anti-Semitic. I don't know what happened in the last year or so when he decided to bring on these beyond the pale guest, but I don't think necessarily the question is to go after Tucker Carlson for bringing them on. We don't go after William Buckley. The question's more nuanced. The question is, if you bring them on, are you prepared to ask them the sort of questions which they are A, going to evade, and B, going to moderate their views, and C, use you to get a larger audience? And if you don't do that, then fairly or not, people are going to think you're complicit in an effort to spread those views, which in the case of Nick Fuentes are abhorrent. So I think everybody was shocked, disappointed that Tucker didn't use those skills with somebody as reprehensible as Fuentes. And I think they hope that he will in the future. Thank you very much. This is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal.
Hey, Bill O'Reilly here. Welcome to the No Spin News, Monday, November 17th, 2025. Stand up for your country. I'm a little discombobulated. You got the allergy thing going on. I dodged it for the first 2.5 months of autumn. And then wham! Okay, so I'm not complaining. I mean, I'm not on the disabled list. I'm ready to go. But I'm a little discombobulated. And I don't like taking all that medicine stuff, you know, because they say, oh, it's non-drowsy. Yeah, like that. Anyway, we'll get through it, and we got a lot of interesting things to tell you. So get ready for some hysteria about Epstein. But here's the kicker. So Congress is going to vote tomorrow on whether to release the so-called Epstein files. I don't even know if there are any files, but there's data, definitely data. And Congress will vote to release it. And so it'll have to be released. And President Trump, and I'll explain in a moment, has changed his position here a little bit. But that could change back, you know. But it's not going to be released until 30 days. If Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, wants to hold it up, it gets held up for 30 days. Doesn't matter. The media is desperate. There's no big story for them to crush now. So they'll speculate. We don't do that. But we are following this very, very closely because there's a lot of important things associated with it politically. I don't happen to believe there's going to be any major news breaking about Epstein. But I could be wrong. And we'll report it accurately if there is. So the talking points this evening is President Trump's moderation over the weekend. Okay? Interesting. So there's 4 areas. The first are on tariffs. And I had always said when the tariffs took place that we would not know if they were successful till the end of the year. Well, the end of the year is about here. They have been successful in raising money for America. They have not been successful in driving down prices. So it's a split decision. And the prices are what's going to hold up the Trump administration for the next 12 months. You got to get them down to win the midterms. Okay. So over the weekend, President Trump said he's going to drop tariffs on beef, coffee, tropical fruit, bananas, avocados, coconuts, pineapples, oranges, tomatoes, pepper, limes, vanilla beans, mangoes, fertilizers, and other stuff. This is an attempt to drive grocery store prices down. Now, I learned over the weekend that the reason that beef, steak, and ground beef is so high is because we used to buy a lot of Mexican meat. But we can't now because there's some kind of parasite thing down there, And the United States Agricultural Division says you can't import Mexican beef. Right away, the price of beef goes up. It's all about supply and demand, as you know. Okay? I didn't know that. But some hideous bug or something that has infected the cattle in Mexico, and we can't buy that cattle. Boom, our prices for beef go up. That's what that Argentinian thing was all about. So now we're going to buy beef from Argentina. I don't know, it might be too late on the beef front. The others, I think, will fall pretty fast. Okay? So I can afford anything I want to eat. I'm lucky, fortunate, and I know it. But I'm not eating a lot of steak and ground beef. You know, I'm doing it to do my part to drive prices down. I eat chicken, fish, shellfish, shrimp, you know, that kind of thing. But I can't remember the last time I ordered a $75 steak in a restaurant. No.
We design our homes to reflect ourselves. Our appliances should be the same way.
And again, I can afford it, but if everybody thought the way that I did, meat and beef prices would not be nearly as high. So that's just me. I mean, that's what I do. All right. So that's a change. The tariffs are being lifted to try to get American food prices down. Second, Mamdani. So you remember that President Trump called him a communist, and he was going to withhold all federal funds from New York and drive this guy nuts. That was on November 3rd, Truth Social. Well, over the weekend, he said, well, I'm going to work at a meeting with Mamdani. Mamdani wants to meet with Trump. Of course he would. All right, billions of dollars of federal money flows into New York City. So there'll probably be a meeting. Here's what the president said, quote, the mayor of New York would like to meet with us. We'll work something out. He'll come to Washington. We want to see everything work out well for New York. Moderation, right? So Mamdani will probably get his meeting in here. This was a surprise. That wasn't surprising to me. But this one was Maduro, the dictator, heinous dictator, awful, in Venezuela. So as you know, the United States moving the USS Ford aircraft carrier down there and other ships, saber rattling about Maduro. Well, now the president is saying he'd consider talks with Maduro. Maduro's desperate. Now, he knows his life is like this. So Maduro will have to talk to him. I don't think there's going to be a lot of moderation here. I think President Trump will say, look, time to get out, Nick. We'll let you go where you want, but you're not going to be there much longer. Go the hard way or the easy way. That's probably what that conversation is going to be. Okay? I'm guessing, don't have any direct knowledge, but I know President Trump as well as anybody knows him, and I would think that would be the message. But he won't deliver that message, the president won't, until he sees Maduro face to face. Okay, that's not going to be a public thing. Finally, Epstein and this situation, the president was against. When I talked to him on St. Patrick's Day of this year, he wasn't against releasing the data from Epstein that the Department of Justice has, because we talked about it. Then he was against releasing it. Now he's not against releasing it again, but who knows tomorrow. This changes back and forth. But here's what you need to know. President Trump knows exactly what the DOJ has. Exactly. I understand there are a few references to him in the Epstein data, but they're not anything that would be embarrassing or bad. And this is the problem, that Epstein knew thousands of people and associated at a very high level with people in New York City. If you just dump the data, then all of those names will be out there, and then people who don't like those names will try to hurt other people, families too. That's what I told President Trump. If it's vetted, for example, Epstein flew down to the Virgin Islands where he owned property. There's a manifest that has to be filed. If your name's on the manifest, that comes out. Justice Department got to put it out. That's vetted information. You're on a plane with Epstein. I have no compunction about that. And then if the press asks you why you're on the plane, you got to tell them. Okay? But if you're just in a meeting with Epstein and 5, 7 other guys or gals, and you don't have anything to do with them, it was a business meeting of some kind, why should your name be put in that poison ground? That's what I told Cuomo on Wednesday. You might remember that. Chris Cuomo on News Nation, I said, look, you can use this stuff to smear people, to really hurt them. Cuomo goes, I don't care. I want to see it. And I said, well, that's not right. And he goes, no, let the people decide. How can the people decide? We don't have investigative abilities or subpoena privileges. We don't know. All we know is what's there. We can't put it into context. And the Justice Department's not going to go down 1,000 names and explain every one of them because they don't even know half them. See what I mean? So this thing is just, it's out of control now. It'll get more out of control, and we'll report on it honestly. So anyway, those are the 4 moderations over the weekend. Tonight, the president addresses McDonald's owners, operators, and suppliers in Washington. He's got to talk about beef, right? McDonald's lives and dies off beef. So that's what's going on tonight.
If you live in a Delaware zip code and have 0 DUIs in the last 5 years,
the tax extension deadline may have passed, but USA.com/bill. All right. So joining us now from El Paso, Texas, is Dylan Corbett. He is the executive director of Hope Border Institute. Okay. First thing. When 10 to 15 million migrants entered the USA under the Biden administration, did you or your organization object to that?
Hey, Bill. It's good to have you. It's good to be with you. Great to be on your program. Thanks for the invitation. It's a good question. I think there was the perception that not everything was as orderly as it could have been under the Biden administration. And I think we were certainly vocal about some real criticisms that we had. The way that they enforced immigration law at the border, the way that they really didn't coordinate the arrivals, they didn't do enough to coordinate it in a secure, in an orderly, in a safe way here at the border, the way that they didn't coordinate the arrival of people into many of the interior cities like we saw in New York, that generated perceptions of chaos, that generated the perception that the system wasn't working. And I think that we were fairly critical. There were also a number of people, because they did take some real steps in the direction of increased enforcement at the border. And here in El Paso, for example, during the Biden administration, we saw the numbers of people skyrocketing, the numbers of people who were dying at the border skyrocketing because there was no real way.
And Holman made that point. But look, we researched your organization. We didn't find anything that you objected to the open border policies of the Biden administration. No statement, no interview by you, nothing. So you might have been disturbed by the chaotic aspect of it, but you certainly didn't come out and say, look, we need to stop this. So Trump gets elected, he stops it almost immediately. So what you saw and your agency had to deal with disappeared in about 45 days. Did you object to Trump stopping it?
Well, I think that we all agree. I think Americans, whether they're on the right or on the left, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, that we need to have a well-managed border.
Okay, but what Trump did, though, let's get specific, not theoretical. Theory gets us nowhere in this interview. Trump stopped it. Do you object to the way he did it?
I certainly have some issues with the way he did it because
Okay,
there's a cost.
give me one objection. What did he do that you don't like?
You know that there's a cost to doing what the president did. The president basically, he shredded our system of asylum, and he shredded our system of receiving refugees. People who are fleeing, they're fleeing wars, they're fleeing serious violence, they're fleeing serious causes of poverty, which are driving them to flee and to migrate to our border in search of protection.
Okay,
now,
so you think that he shredded it. Now, the official policy of Homeland Security is you can apply for asylum in the United States. You have to go to a port of entry to do so. You can't just be caught in the desert in Texas or Arizona, say to the ICE agent or the Border Patrol agent, I want asylum, which is what Biden allowed. That was the big thing. They disregarded, the Biden administration, the law Congress passed in 1952 saying all asylum must go through the American consulate or embassy in the home country or in the American ports of entry. Now, Trump is enforcing that. You can still apply for asylum here. So you have an objection to that?
Well, I'd question that a little bit, Bill, because I think that the system of asylum really isn't being respected, neither at ports of entry nor in between ports of entry. I'd quibble a little bit with how you characterize asylum law, because people do have the right under our federal law to apply for asylum, even if they were to cross in between ports of entry.
But they can still do that. They don't have the right to apply for it on the ground. They have to go to a port of entry or an American facility in their home country. That's the law. That's what it says.
There we'd have to disagree, because right now you're not able to go to a consulate in Mexico or in Central America to apply to asylum. It simply doesn't
Why not?
exist. If you
can
came
go.
to a port of entry, I can tell you right now from my experience, I'm only just a couple of miles from the port of entry here in El Paso. If you were to apply for asylum there, you're going to get turned back. You're going to get sent back to Mexico. So the system right now is not functional. We don't have an asylum system in the United States right now.
Let me look into that, because from what I understand, it is still a functioning system. But if you're right, you're right, and I'll report it. Okay, let's move ahead. So you've got now between 10 and 15 new migrants that weren't here in the first Trump administration that are now here. Mm-hmm. What is the responsibility of the United States government to support those people?
Yeah, you raise a good question. And I think you said earlier in the segment that the United States government really does have a responsibility to know who's coming into our country. And we do.
Yes.
Important. We've got to manage the border so that it's done in a safe way. We've got to protect the national security of our country. And we've got to protect local communities. If people are threats to our community, as you said earlier, you support immigration enforcement of those who are threats. We do have to go after legitimate threats. We shouldn't be allowing anyone to game the system, to exploit the system. We shouldn't be allowing traffickers to take advantage of the broken system. So immigration enforcement really does need to prioritize safety. We can agree on that. Now, what do we do with the other folks who are in the country, some of whom have been in the country for a long time, many who've been here for more than 10 years, many who've been here for more than 20 years, many people who have roots in the country. Their children are going to our schools. They might have a small business. What do we do about those folks? That's the question on the table right now. Whether you agree with what's happening on the border or not, the question right now is, what do we do with what we're seeing in the country around?
This is the most advanced fleece ever invented. That's because bearskin fleece is ethically sourced.
Enforcement. You mentioned the bishop's statement. I think the big takeaway from the bishops is that they're really pushing back against mass deportation as a strategy for dealing with this population.
But it's really not mass, because, if you look at how many migrants are being detained, it's 5% would be a hard number, all right, of all the people who were allowed in here under Biden. But I understand that. I would go a different way. I would. Well, you don't object to criminal aliens being deported immediately, do you?
Well, I think we do need to remove anyone who's a threat to the safety of our.
So criminal aliens gone, and that includes DUIs, domestic services. Right. The problem is, according to Director Homan, who's an honest man. I mean, he's a hard. I was going to say hard. He's a hard guy, but when they raid looking for migrants that have judges' orders signed for deportation and criminals, when they raid, very often there are others with them, girlfriends, brothers, sisters, children, who are here without credentials, and they have to bring them all in. That's what the government says. Is that wrong?
Well, as you said, I do think we've got to target people who are threats to our local community, but that's not what we're seeing right now. The data are pretty clear, Bill. You know, if we look at everybody, for example, who's been targeted and arrested and detained this year under the Trump administration, 2/3 of people don't have a criminal conviction. So that's the vast majority. We're talking about the overwhelming percentage of people who have been targeted.
Okay, but 1/3 with criminal interactions, that's a hell of a lot of people in danger. But I'm with you. We don't have a disagreement there. If there's another way, if there's another way to adjudicate peaceful, undocumented migrants, then we should explore that. Congress's responsibility, of course, to do that, and they don't do it. Okay.
There we agree. Yeah, we've got a broken system, and both parties are at fault, and it's been broken for a long time. And that's the reason that we're in this predicament right now, because we've kicked the can, both the president, the White House.
100%. You can't be going a 1952 law and it's 2025 and you people sit around and do nothing. Now, the Catholic Church, if you look at the theology, are you Catholic?
I am, just like you. Okay. We're Catholics.
Okay, so we have to be compassionate to everybody who's poor and in a bad circumstance, and that includes undocumented migrants. And I am. I can prove it. But the Catholic Church, refuses to use the words undocumented, won't use it, and number two, portrays this as an issue where the government is the bad guy. The U.S. government is the bad guy. And I'll submit to you that the bishops are misguided because the government is trying to protect Americans from this massive wave that nobody has any control over. Do you see my point?
I see what you're saying. I would say that the bishops, and I worked for the bishops for a number of years. I worked for the Vatican for a number of years. I think what's really happening is that these religious leaders are responding to what their local communities are seeing across the country. They're responding to two things. They're responding to that, the reality of these actions of ICE and immigrant enforcement and the raids that are really ugly. They're brutal. I mean, we're talking about moms being separated from families. We're talking about, there's been situations where school teachers have been ripped out of schools, where parents have been ripped out of cars, where their kids are left behind. Nobody wants to see that. That's not the way to.
But that's not the rule. That is the exception.
I think that they're responding to that, though. They're seeing. I mean, you've seen the images coming out of Chicago, of Los Angeles. Where we're deploying the Department of Homeland Security, but also the FBI, and in some cases the National Guard and the military. Nobody wants to see this. It's not good, and in fact, it's turning off a lot of voters. A lot of people who supported Trump and said, "Yeah, we want a secure border. Yeah, we got to fix the immigration system." A lot of people are stepping back. He's losing in the Latino vote. So I think the bishops are responding to what they're seeing locally, but they're also responding to the Pope. Pope Leo, he's been outspoken about this, especially in the last couple months.
But that's his job. See,
right away.
But I'd like to interview Pope Leo. We're working on it, but I don't think he's going to do it. But I would say, Your Holiness, my first question after asking him for forgiveness would be, listen, every government, legitimate government, has an obligation to protect its people.
Yep.
And when you let 10 to 15 million unsupervised foreign nationals into a country, that's not protecting your people, Your Holiness, is it? I'd love to see how he answers that one. And they all fall back on the teacher in that school or the mom and I got it. But there is a tremendous problem here fostered by our own government under Biden. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I think the Holy Father would respond this way. I think he'd say, you're right. There's a place for borders. There's a place for governments managing immigration so that it's done in a way that's efficient and meets our national security needs and maybe even meets our economic needs. I think the Holy Father would probably agree with that. But he'd also say that when we lead with compassion, that when we honor the stranger, when we welcome the stranger, we'll be better off for it because it's the Christian thing to do, it's the right thing to do, but it's also the American thing to do. He's from America. He knows this is a country that's benefited from the contributions of migrants, that they're key to our economic resilience, our social resilience. They make us great as a country. And I think he'd remind us of that there's got to be a better way, that compassion.
Well, there's got to be a better way. You're right. But it isn't letting everybody in. And that is the impression that the Catholic Church is giving, not only the USA, but in Europe as well. Mr. Corbett, very good debate. We really appreciate you, and thank you for coming on today. Let's face it,
You could say Domino's new spicy chicken bacon ranch pizza is $9.99 when you mix and match. Or, you could just order it.
All right, guys, we got to talk about this because this is absolutely amazing. Ted Cruz set stage for 2028 run with Tucker jabs. So Ted Cruz is apparently leaking to the media that he's going to run in 2028 to be the Republican nominee for president. And so he's leaning into this fight with Tucker Carlson. Well, right off the bat here, let me just say, Ted Cruz is a bigger idiot than I realized. I know he went to an Ivy League school, but he certainly isn't acting like it. I watched a video the other day, shout out to the channel, I believe it was Rationality Rules is the name of the channel. He's normally like an atheist-type YouTuber, and he did this long breakdown of the exact debate between Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson that went mega viral about Ted Cruz accepting money from AIPAC and, lobbying for Israel and representing their interests. And understand, Rationality Rules is not a right-winger. He's like us. He's on the left. And he does this breakdown and explains, it's just in an objective way, how Tucker Carlson dismantled Ted to his face. Like, just absolutely obliterated him, and Ted Cruz was on the back foot the entire time, totally fucking scrambling the entire time, was caught red-handed the entire time, basically selling out the country for Israel, right? And Ted thinks this is good for him. Ted thinks, like, the fight with Tucker is going to help him moving into the future. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. All right, so let's go. Here we go. Texas Senator Ted Cruz is laying the groundwork for a 2028 presidential bid by leaning into his feud with Tucker Carlson and staking out turf as a traditional pro-interventionist Republican. Okay, let me just pause here to point out, the fact that Ted thinks this is, a good look for him shows how dumb he really is. Because Ted, even George W. Bush, when he ran in 2000, even he was like, oh no, I'm a compassionate conservative. He had to pretend to be anti-war when he ran because nobody's pro-intervention. If you make an argument for intervention, like just ideologically, I'm pro-war, I'm pro-intervention, nobody likes that. Even right-wingers don't like that. They like to think, oh no, we only do war as a last resort, like self-defense, imminent self-defense, last resort. But here's Cruz going, no, I'm pro-war, I'm pro-intervention, and I'm going to win running on that platform. No, you're not. The biggest warmongers ran pretending to be anti-war. Trump is the biggest warmonger. He ran pretending to be anti-war. George W. Bush, biggest warmonger. He ran pretending to be anti-war. This just shows how little he knows. God, he's so up his own ass. So here's what they say. By poking at Carlson's isolationist foreign policy views, accusing him of anti-Semitism and more, Ted Cruz is putting himself on a collision course with Vice President Vance, a Carlson ally widely seen as the 2028 GOP frontrunner. Let me just point out, what Cruz is probably thinking is the donor money. That's what he's thinking. Oh, if I run, I can really do well because I'll raise all the money. Because all of the pro-Israel donors will throw the money at me. So I'll have a big fundraising advantage against J.D. Vance or whoever else wants to run against me. I'm not kidding. He might be thinking that. And on that, he's correct. He will raise way more money. But people, now it's a liability to have AIPAC money and have pro-Israel money because everybody knows you're bought. You're a cuck to a foreign government. The senator is also diving into issues that are tearing at President Trump's MAGA movement, namely ideological differences over Israel. We have a responsibility to speak out even when it's uncomfortable, Cruz said in a statement to Axios. When voices in our own movement push dangerous and misguided ideas, we can't look the other way. I won't hesitate to call out those who peddle destructive, vile rhetoric and threaten our principles and our future. Silence in the face of recklessness is not an option. Carlson laughed off Cruz's gambit in a text message to Axios, calling it hilarious. Good luck, Carlson said. That's my comment and heartfelt view, talking about good luck to Ted Cruz running for president. Cruz has been going after Carlson relentlessly in recent weeks, including on his social media feed and in speeches before GOP donors and conservative activists. He appeared on Carlson's podcast in June and criticized the host over his opposition to Trump's missile strike on Iran's nuclear weapons facility. He also slammed Carlson over his criticism of Israel's campaign in Gaza and U.S. aid to help Ukraine in its war against Russia. On foreign policy, Tucker has gone bat crap crazy, Cruz said afterward. He's gone off the rails. So Ted Cruz, who literally openly supports a genocide of innocent Palestinians in Gaza, he's calling somebody else bat crap crazy. Okay. During the past several weeks, Cruz has accused Carlson of engaging in anti-Semitism, blasting him for conducting a friendly interview with white nationalist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes. Well, he's right about that one. During a late October speech before the Republican Jewish Coalition, Cruz called Carlson a coward and complicit in evil for his conduct in the Fuentes interview. Last week, while speaking to the Federalist Society convention in D.C., this month, Cruz said Carlson had spread a poison that is profoundly dangerous when he invited Fuentes, whom the senator called a little goose-stepping Nazi. It's true. That is what he is. Some of Cruz's jabs have been echoed by the Daily Wire's Ben Shapiro, who torched Carlson earlier this month over the Fuentes interview, accusing him of polishing abhorrent views conservatives shouldn't embrace. This week, Cruz plans to address the Jewish Federations of North America's General Assembly. The Republicans say that in challenging Carlson, Cruz is endearing himself to powerful pro-Israel donors, like I told you, the donors, who are deeply angered by the podcaster's embrace of Fuentes and worried about the GOP shift toward isolationism. It's definitely getting noticed. RJC CEO Matt Brooks tells Axios, many of those donors align themselves with Nikki Haley, a hawkish former UN ambassador, in her unsuccessful 2024 GOP primary against Trump. Cruz, the runner-up to Trump in 2016 GOP primary, has been taking steps toward a presidential run. He's been hitting the speakers circuit, including with recent appearances before the Miami-Dade Republican Party and Maverick PAC, an organization geared towards young conservatives. Cruz is set to host a donor retreat next year and has been hosting a top-ranked podcast and syndicated radio show, which has helped him build a formidable network for soliciting small dollar contributors. This is cope. I'll talk more about that in a second. The senator's chairmanship of the Commerce Committee has given him entree to major financial figures as his opposition to Trump's tariff policy. Cruz also is endorsing midterm candidates, which could help him win chits for a future run. Cruz will need to reckon with the Republican primary electorate that has largely abandoned his George W. Bush-era support for interventionist foreign policy in favor of the more isolationist America First approach that Carlson and Vance support. Vance does not support it. Vance supports what Trump is doing. He supports the warmongering. Initial polls show Vance is a big favorite in 2028. Some GOP donors may be queasy about crossing the Trump White House and embracing a candidate other than Vance. Vance, unlike Carlson, has aggressively disavowed Fuentes, calling him a total loser. Fuentes has made racist comments about Vance's wife, Usha, who is an Indian American. All right, so here's the thing. Ready? Ted Cruz's base of support would be the pro-Israel donors, the billionaires who fucking are super right-wing but hate the tariffs. So he would be able to raise a shitload of money. But here's his problem. He no longer is anywhere near the heart of the Republican base. He just isn't. He's nowhere near it. He's not even close to near it. Does Ted Cruz, will he have like 80-year-old supporters in a Republican primary? Yes. In fact, that's the group that would like him, is very old Republicans who are down the line, standard Republicans. There are no standard Republicans anymore, but somewhat standard Republicans. Because the polls show that older Republicans are still overwhelmingly pro-Israel. It's like 70 or 80% of older Republicans are pro-Israel. They're psychotic Christians. They think the end times are going to happen and we need to be buddy-buddy with Israel for that reason so Jesus can come back on a winged horse. I'm not kidding. This is what they actually believe. So like the evangelical crazy people, the fundamentalist, they would be pro-Cruz. But all of the energy on the Republican base is with Fuentes. All of the energy online is with Fuentes. All of the energy is with the young people. Young Republicans are like 50% anti-Israel, right? And those numbers are only going to rise. So am I saying he has no chance whatsoever? I'm actually not saying that because he's going to raise a gazillion dollars. The post-Trump Republican Party would be a colossal mess. Trump, I think, wants to stay in power, but his health might not allow him to, and the political realities might not allow him to. He's going to want to stay in power. But I think Cruz, he would represent basically the 80-year-old Republicans and the pro-Israel donors and the Wall Street donors, right? And then, but the insurgent crowd on the right, it's Fuentes adjacent, it's Tucker adjacent, it's critical of Israel. It's not your dad's GOP anymore. And so I want to see it just for the chaos. I want to see it just because this guarantees that the Republican Civil War will continue aggressively. But it'd be fun. It would be fun to watch him run again because he would be basically an old school GOP neocon fucking stink bomb, messing up the America First fascist play. And don't get it twisted. Ted Cruz is also a fascist. He literally tried to help Trump overthrow the election in 2020. We're talking about degrees of difference here that are, they're there, but both sides are evil, even though there are degrees of difference. But he would only be popular among the really old people and the donor class. But that's it. And he also, there's a very high likelihood, too, of total flame out, total fucking humiliation, even though he raised all the money in the world. He could have a Jeb Bush-style campaign, right? Where he raises all the money in the world and just gets zero fucking traction. So, that's fun. To me, this proves how out of touch he is and that he's in that Washington bubble so deeply, is that he really thinks this fight with Tucker was good for him. Bro, you came out looking like a fucking dumbass. You came out looking like a total traitor. As a lefty, I see that, but there's a lot of people on the right who see the same fucking thing. So the fact that he doesn't recognize that tells me he's been to one too many cocktail parties. He hasn't been out there in the real world. He doesn't know. He cannot take the pulse of the country anymore. He is a dying breed of politician. And so I want to see him run just because it'll continue the Republican Civil War and it could be humiliating and embarrassing. But there we have it, man. Ted Cruz, he might actually run again. All right, guys, that's the show, y'all.
Why become CPR or first aid certified? A bystander with CPR certification and training could potentially save a life with their knowledge, skills, and confidence to act in an emergency and perform CPR as accurately as possible in times of need. Additionally, CPR or first aid certification is required for many professions. With our wide offering of online certifications, you'll find the right online class for you. Do you want to get CPR and first aid certified?
Tonight, Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren, a former Harvard professor herself, is calling on the school to cut ties with the former university president and current faculty member Larry Summers. That's because Senator Warren says that Summers cannot be trusted, that's her quote, after new details emerged regarding his close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. All of this revealed in last week's release of Epstein's private emails. Larry Summers served as Bill Clinton's Treasury Secretary, and in Barack Obama's administration, he was the director of the National Economic Council. These new emails revealed comments that Summers made as he also sought out dating advice from Jeffrey Epstein. That includes the morning of March 17th, 2019. Let's see these emails here where Summers and Epstein were exchanging multiple emails debating Summers and whether or not he should send a note to a romantic interest. Epstein argued to Summers that it would be, quote, bad form. Summers wrote back, quote, why bad form? Supposed to be face-to-face? To which Epstein replied, you care very much for this person. You might want to demonstrate that. A note does the very opposite. Now, the reason that exchange is notable and that we're pointing it out is because of when it happened. It was just 4 months before that exchange that the Miami Herald had published an exhaustive investigation detailing Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of underage girls. They continued to communicate, though, for the next several months. That includes on July 5th, 2019, when Larry Summers sent Jeffrey Epstein an update from his vacation on Cape Cod. The next day, July 6, 2019, was when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested for sex trafficking crimes. Now, tonight, Larry Summers told CNN in a statement that he is going to continue to teach at Harvard, but he will be stepping back from his other public commitments, saying in a statement that he takes full responsibility for the misguided decision to continue communicating with Mr. Epstein. My political sources tonight are Democratic strategist Alencia Johnson and Republican strategist David Urban. And obviously, it's worth noting, Alencia, that Senator Warren and Larry Summers have clashed before in the past over policy issues and whatnot. But her saying, this is someone who is very involved in Democratic politics, was reportedly going to be very involved in them doing a version of Project 2025 for Democrats. She's saying that the school needs to cut ties with him entirely. Do you agree with her?
I absolutely do agree with her, and not just because I worked for her in her presidential primary, but because
as you explained, the timing of this. It's one thing if Larry Summers was communicating with Jeffrey Epstein before the big investigation from the Miami Herald, but it's another, and he said he didn't know about it because there have been instances of that, right? Someone is charged for an egregious crime and people around him don't know anything about it. But this was very public. It was all over our national news. People in politics were paying attention to it and deep diving because of his ties to a lot of political figures. And so it is problematic that he remained in contact with him. And we don't see any evidence of him even acknowledging how wrong Jeffrey Epstein was. And so I agree with Senator Warren because if we think about his involvement, not only in Democratic politics, he is also a teacher at Harvard. And there are probably young women in his class. And I would be concerned about, whether or not he has the integrity to continue to be in those positions. I'm not going to sit here and say anything's going to happen to his students, but it is concerning that you would be okay with someone who has these accusations and you still continue to be involved in a teaching capacity.
So you think what he's doing tonight doesn't go far enough because he says he is still going to be teaching?
I don't think it goes far enough. I don't think we should continue to reward bad behavior, or even when you're trying to turn a blind eye to maintain a position of power.
Yeah. And David Urban, this all comes as we're seeing the ramifications of these emails far and wide. I mean, obviously, Stacey Plaskett, another Democrat, was also texting with Jeffrey Epstein during the Michael Cohen hearing. Apparently, a spokesperson for her confirmed that she was getting text messages from him that influenced her questioning, it appears. But David, this is also coming as for Republicans, for your party, there is a huge breakup underway between Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene. In part, she's criticized how they've handled the Jeffrey Epstein saga and this entire back and forth over the discharge petition. She was one of those 4 votes that came out initially and voted for this. When the president saying that she's a traitor and Marjorie Taylor Greene, as he called her, what do you make of that? Do you think that's all right, or do you think that's too far?
Building an API platform isn't just about developer speed. It's about self-serve access to infrastructure that helps teams to build.
Yeah, it's too far, obviously. Let me just say this. I don't think I've ever said these words before. I agree with Senator Warren, right? Like, I agree with Senator Warren and Alicia. I think that Larry Summers has to go. Not only was it his judgment very bad there, but this was a young woman who was a mentee. He was texting or emailing back and forth with Epstein about. And moreover, her father was a member of the Chinese Communist Party. So most likely he was getting played as an asset during this whole thing. So it's only the tip of the iceberg with the Larry Summers issue. But yeah, look, Marjorie Taylor Greene, like her, don't like her, love her, hate her. She campaigned for Donald Trump when very few people were. She was out there burning and churning. When, after January 6th, and Donald Trump was a lonely soldier, she was a foot soldier in the Trump war, fighting for him every step in every way. So I think it's a little harsh for him to say what he did about her. Look, I don't necessarily agree with her all the time on this vote. I think, bad news doesn't get better with age. If I were the White House, I'd have released it a long, long time ago and moved on quickly to something different. It's a bad PR move, it seems to me. I'm not quite sure
David,
who or what they're trying to protect, but it's never getting better.
Well, that's what I mean. I was talking to people who are allies of Trump's and White House officials who were saying they kind of did this to themselves because they could have just come out and supported this from the beginning instead of, they brought Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room to try to get her to change her mind last week. So it's not like they really get a lot of credit for this passing. It passed despite their efforts, not because of them.
Yeah, listen, I consider myself a huge supporter of the president's. I can tell you in 2016, when I signed up to support Donald Trump, you could fit everybody in a room, in a tiny room that was supporting Donald Trump. So I just think this was mishandled from the get-go. I'm not quite sure why. Just get the information out. People campaigned on it. The president campaigned on it. Others did as well. The president and Republicans feel that they were, that for too long the mighty and powerful have been protected in this country, and this president campaigned on making sure there was equal and fair justice for everybody, the rich as well as the poor, and this feels a little counter to that. It feels like that someone's being protected that might not be worthy of that protection, as you see in these Larry Summer emails.
Yeah, and Alencia, just seeing this, Mike Johnson was asked about this, the calling her a traitor. it is something that was unfathomable. I mean, after January 6th, there were very few Republicans who still vocally supported the president publicly. Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of them. And so to see this split has even shocked a lot of people inside their orbit.
Listen, I am all about people redeeming themselves and changing their opinion, but I believe in, as the good book says, you judge a person by their fruit. And so we have to see how Marjorie Taylor Greene continues to move forward, and also if she atones for a lot of the egregious things that not only she said, but supported, like January 6th and some of the things that she didn't hold Donald Trump accountable for. And so we have to see where she continues to be on this path, because she's talking a great game right now, but who knows what's going to happen when something else happens that comes out of this White House.
Yeah, Dana Bash had a really good interview with her on Sunday and brought up some of her past statements and whatnot. And she did ask for, or said that she regretted some of those things. Alencia, stand by. David, as well.
She went on the View. She went on the View. How much better can she plead this?
Listen, we got to continue to see more of this from Marjorie Taylor Greene, because some of the things that she has done and said has, quite frankly, harmed a lot of people. And so we'll see. Judge a person by their fruits.
Epstein's accusers have released a new video calling for the release of all the files.
I was 14 years old. I was 16 years old. I was 16.
17. 14 years old.
This is me.
This was me.
This is me.
When I met Jeffrey Epstein. This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows. It's time to shine a light into the darkness.
Joining me now live is one of Epstein's accusers, Alicia Arden, and her attorney, Gloria Allred, who represents numerous Epstein survivors. Gloria, Alicia, thanks so much for being here. Alicia, let's start with you. Why is it important for you for these files to be released?
Well, I've always wanted the truth, and I have always said that the time when I did file the police report, if it would have been more investigated, I feel that I could have saved the victims from going through what they went through. So now I want the files to be released because I think we all need saving, and it's the truth that has to come out. It's been going on too long for myself and for the victims.
So when you say the police report, so you were the first to file a police report against him. This was back in 1997.
Yes.
This happened in Santa Monica. You were 25 years old? 26?
Yes.
And he pretended to be a Victoria's Secret talent scout?
Victoria's Secret, and I had wanted to be in the catalog very badly, like any young model would, and I was in a lot of magazines, and I was opposite Cindy Crawford in one, and I knew that I could be in it. If I was thinking that he was really a scout.
And so he says, come here for an audition, essentially, and it turns out that he has nothing to do with Victoria's Secret, and he gropes you.
And he gropes me, and he tells me to come take off my clothes, and he wants to manhandle me. Manhandle me. I never had heard that word in my entire life, and I've still never heard it. I want to manhandle you, come over here, started touching my breasts, my buttocks. I was in a bra and underwear, which is common that you have to be in a bra and underwear and show your body if you want to be in Victoria's Secrets. And I was very happy to do so, but he really wasn't with the magazine in the end.
Yeah, and Gloria, the interesting thing is she went to the police.
She did go to the police. That's what we asked people to do. She has proof that she went to the police because she has the police report, but no prosecution ensued. And that is so typical of what so many survivors have been facing over the years. Denied justice when Jeffrey Epstein got that sweetheart deal in 2008 in Florida. Denied justice again when he was arrested, incarcerated, waiting to stand trial, and then died in custody. Denied justice now until, now President Trump says, release the Epstein files, vote in support of it. But guess what? They don't have to take a vote at all.
Right.
He could just release it.
He could release them himself right now.
Exactly.
And yet why do you think he's not?
Delay, deny, avoid, evade. Yeah. We don't know, but I can't read his mind. I want to thank him for saying, Republicans, you can support this release of the files. However,
We design our homes to reflect ourselves. Our appliances should be the same way. The new collection is designed to be.
he could just pick up the phone, call Pam Bondi, Department of Justice right now, and it would be released.
Yeah, and so back to your story, Alicia. So in 1997, you go to the police. You say, this happened to me, and they did not believe you, right?
No, I was very discouraged. I wanted a female police officer. They said, why are you filing a police report? I said, I just ran out of the hotel room. I was being attacked. I was going to be raped. I had to get out. And he offered me $100 as I was leaving, and I did not want that. I said, I'm not a prostitute. I want to be in Victoria's Secrets, and in Victoria's Secret. So I had told them all that, and they just didn't believe me. They had me leave and told me to come back. And I did. I went back to my job in Hollywood. I thought about it, and I went back, and I said, I have to file this. What if he's doing this to other girls?
Yeah, and then to hear for all these years, because that was 20 years before Me Too, right? When people suddenly, finally started to feel seen and to feel heard, to then know that all this happened afterwards. How does that make you feel?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good point, Alex, because what happened to the Me Too movement? Is it still around? Does it protect myself and the victims? I don't really know much about it anymore, and I don't want them to be afraid if they're in a situation like me or whatever situation they find themselves in to leave and go to the nearest local police department and say, I'm here to file on something that's happening to me in this hotel room or wherever it is, and I want to file. I'm not leaving, I'm doing it. They should be strong.
What do you want to see in those files?
I'm ready and prepared to see anything that's going to come out of the alleged pedophiles that have assaulted my friends, the victims, and I'm ready to see who the men were and how on earth they got to where they were. They were friends with Epstein. How did this go on for so long? So I'm ready and prepared to see them.
I mean, because we're hearing, Gloria, just today about Larry Summers, who was the head of Harvard, who was a top advisor to Barack Obama, to Bill Clinton, and that he was apparently involved with this. He's now saying he's going to step back from his role at Harvard. But, I mean, there could very well be some heavyweights on the Democratic side in this, too.
That's correct. And, of course, the time with Jeffrey Epstein a while back, there was another Democrat at the time that was good friends with him, and his name was Donald Trump.
Who was a Democratic donor at the time and invited Bill and Hillary Clinton to his wedding.
Yeah, and now is asking the Department of Justice to investigate former President Clinton. He doesn't say what evidence he has that President Clinton did anything wrong.
And of course, there's no evidence that Donald Trump did anything wrong so far. There's not.
Right.
Important point.
Well, of course, we don't have most of the evidence, and that's another point. The Department of Justice, because of the subpoena that the House Oversight Committee issued, has released about 50,000 pages of files. But there's another 50,000 pages that have not yet been released. So why this dribble? Why not just get it all out? Now, there are going to be some redactions. How many? We don't know. We do know some, obviously, and I've said this for a long time. They are going to redact the child sexual abuse videos that were taken by Jeffrey Epstein and were found.
And apparently the name of the victims.
Yeah, and of course the names of the victims, or in a way that they are identified, even if their names are not known. Are they going to redact the names of men who have not been prosecuted, who may or may not ever be prosecuted? That's a question. And as you said, if they're saying they're going to investigate President Trump and then they name some other Democrats, by the way, will any Republicans be investigated, or is it just Democrats? Is there going to be a real prosecution as well as an investigation of Democrats, or is this just political persecution.
Well, and Alicia, to that point about the politics of this, because we got to remember that you and other people are victimized by this. It's really not about the politics at all. It's about people that were really hurt. And I know this is really emotional for you. I know it was emotional today at a press conference for you.
Right.
And I was wondering if you could expand upon that idea that this is really about human beings. It's not about a political football, because so much we watch on frankly, the cable news coverage of this on both sides is trying to blame this side or blame this side. And we're forgetting about the people, the real people that are hurting because of this monster.
Right, and everyone should be investigated, whether it's Democrat or Republican, like Reid, Summers, the Clintons, and all of Morgan Stanley. Everyone should be investigated. It doesn't matter what side you're on. Everyone should be investigated how they knew Jeffrey Epstein and why did they go, and if they went to travel with him, and how were they friends with him?
And did any of them enable or assist or conspire with Jeffrey Epstein and or Ms. Maxwell to sexually abuse young girls, sex traffic them, and so forth? These are very important questions.
And lastly, real concisely, Alicia, if this actually does come out after all this time, and if names are named, and if there is some sense of justice, what will that mean to you?
Well, I think in my heart, I will be a little relieved to know who these people are, and quite frankly, justice and the truth for myself and the other victims. And a little bit sad as to why these people really could go down that road and like victimize myself and the other victims. And why would they do that to us? And I think I will be a little afraid. I'm prepared, but a little shocked to see those names.
And I just say how proud I am of Alicia and all the other survivors who have continued to persevere and are not giving up, because they know that the truth matters and they're determined to find it out.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story and being brave to come out here. Thank you so much. And Gloria, always great to see you.
Thank you, Alan.
When you're out in the wild, you either have bear skin or you have no skin.
Nice to finally be here as an author on your show.
All right, joining me now is John Fugelsang. He's the host of the Sanity Cast with John Fugelsang on Sirius XM. That's on Insight 121. And Tell Me Everything. His book is Separation of Church and Hate. Interesting. A Sane Person's Guide to Taking Back the Bible from Fundamentalists, Fascists, and Flock Fleecing Frauds. New York Times bestseller. All right, John, welcome back. How you doing, brother?
So nice to see you, Jake. It's nice to finally be here as an author on your show for the first time. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and a best-selling author. Love it.
7 weeks, yeah. By the way, this is a book that I was told for 15 years could not be sold. I was told a book for atheists and believers alike on how to use scripture when dealing with Christian nationalists. No, it's insane. And the first 2 weeks we were out, every corporate media appearance canceled us, and we still made the New York Times list for the first couple of weeks with no corporate media support. I thought you'd like that.
Yeah, I love it. And no mainstream media interviewing you, even though you're among the top books in the country. I wouldn't know anything about that. Okay, so let's talk about the book. So tell us the general thesis of the book first.
Sure. As some of your viewers may know, I'm the child of 2 ex-clergy. My mom was a nun who worked as a nurse with lepers in Malawi, Africa, and my dad was a Franciscan brother who wore the Jedi robes and taught history to Catholic boys in Brooklyn. And we were raised to be progressive, free-thinking Catholics, which is why I do stand-up, because I can't afford the therapy I need. But for many years, I've done material about this. I did it with you on Current TV, on Sirius XM, on our show every night, and on stage. I have always enjoyed going after fundamentalists and Christian nationalists, because here's the thing: whether you believe in Jesus as a literal thing, or the original innocent brown-skinned man executed by the state, or the divine son of God, or a hippie, or a complete first-century myth, the fact is, even if you're atheist, if you're debating policy against a Christian nationalist, chances are Jesus, whether he's real or not, is probably on your side. Conservative Christians in this country have really been suckered into an age-old scam of aligning with power instead of challenging it. Jesus' entire movement was about humility, servant leadership. The last shall be first. Go to the margins and help the less fortunate. But right-wing Christianity is about power. They don't care about the actual teachings of Jesus. They consider them woke. They don't care about religious freedom. They don't care about God. They don't care about Satan. They care about conservative Christian domination of society. That's it. And that has been the plague on Christianity from the beginning, going back to the Roman Empire. When you choose to use the religion not for people, but for power, to not stand up to empire as Jesus did, but to grovel before it. And that is why right-wing Christianity is the opposite of what Jesus told us to do. And you don't need to believe in the Bible as literal fact to use it against these folks.
Yeah, I mean, the world is a funny place these days because, you're calling out Christian so-called leaders in that, especially Christian right-wingers from the left, and Tucker Carlson is starting to call them out from the right on how they've been lying to folks about how, you're supposed to serve Israel in the Bible and all good Christians would bow their heads and do as Israel says. And so it's an interesting amalgamation of folks beginning to say, maybe they're not actually teaching us the Bible. They're just teaching us an agenda that would help them. So along those lines, I had, speaking of Christian nationalists, Pastor Doug Wilson on the show. And I asked him because I was curious, right? And we got into a long conversation and I said, so what happens at the end? He said, well, I mean, obviously you as a Muslim and an atheist, born Muslim, but atheist now. No, you couldn't hold office and you wouldn't be a functioning part of democracy. Christians would rule. And is that what the Bible says? Did Jesus come and say only we should get to rule and everyone else should have to obey us and have less rights than us?
Believe it or not, Cenk, no, that is the opposite of what the character of Jesus in the Bible says. The Jesus of the Bible is constantly telling you to go beyond your own religion's rules and reach out to love people outside of your tribe. The very fact is that Christian nationalists, the only thing they hate more than the New Testament is the Bill of Rights. And they cannot stand religious freedom. The very fact that they said it to you gives away the lie. They don't care about religious freedom. They want Christian dominance. But the fact is, if you think you're better than somebody else because of your belief in Jesus, you don't really believe in Jesus. The fact is, the character of Jesus in the Bible gives us marching orders in Matthew 25, the parable of the goats and the sheep, also known as the judgment of nations. It's when Jesus says he's going to gather individuals and nations and judge them all, heaven or hell, on 4 categories. Did you take care of the poor? Did you take care of the sick? Did you, welcome the stranger? And were you kind to those in prison? That's it. Not how much money you give the church, not how often you go, not how much you hate Muslims or scream at women outside clinics, not how cruel you are to migrants or trans kids. Those 4, now you'd think conservative Christians would put this on the side of buildings. You'd think Jesus saying this is what gets you to heaven or hell would be a priority, but they can't stand the actual teachings of Jesus. They have found a Messiah they like much better. And so I wrote this book because you don't need to believe in the Bible to use it. Take immigration. God of the Old Testament commands us to welcome the stranger, orders us to treat the alien as one of our own. Jesus shows up in Matthew 25 and says, you got to welcome the stranger. You'll be judged heaven or hell for it. So turn the tables on your right-wing loved one this Thanksgiving and bring it up. Bring up Matthew 25 and God of the Old Testament and say, why should I listen to you and Donald Trump and reject Jesus and God? We don't need to fight these Christians. We can make them fight the Bible because they are against it. They use it as a prop in camouflage. And I wrote this, Cenk, as a guide to camouflage removal on all the items that divide us most. Abortion rights, LGBTQ rights, biblical literalism, the death penalty, gun rights, feminism, white supremacy, Islamophobia, hatred of atheists, the death penalty, on all the issues that are dividing us right now, poverty, healthcare policy. The Republicans are giving a middle finger to Jesus every step of the way, and the Democrats seem to be too terrified to actually use this Bible and call them out for their blasphemy. It's a prop they wave around. Ask any MAGA what's one teaching of Christ the MAGA movement fights for, and you'll find out how little they actually know the Bible. They'll say abortion, Bible's not against abortion. God asserts a fetus is property in Exodus 21, and a woman's life has more value in his eye. That's why abortions are legal and free in Israel right now. They've never been, Jesus is against the death penalty. Never mentions abortion. Now, do you hear Democrats talking about this? Because I don't. They have let themselves be a piñata by these right-wing blasphemers for decades of my life. I'm really ready to see them begin to take the Bible and the flag back from the hypocrites.
So, John, on the facts, it's indisputable. You can just read the Bible, right? So, and I'm going to get into that in a second. So, after I explain all that, what I want to ask you is, how did they turn the Bible upside down, right? So, okay, first let me lay out a couple things. I mean, you already made a persuasive case here. Your whole book is an enormously persuasive case. But on top of that, I mean, Jesus says, give away all your worldly possessions and follow me, right? So, I mean, if a current day political figure said that, Sean Hannity would call him a communist. Trump would call him a communist. Everyone. I mean, imagine if a guy running for New York said, I want everyone to give away their worldly possessions. Or he said, you know what? I'm going to go into the big banks and I'm going to throw them all out. Like, what's another word for bank? Money changer, maybe? I'm going to wipe them.
It was usury. It was all exploitation of the poor. That's why Jesus had that whole flip out. And it may have led to his arrest in the story. But again, what he's constantly obsessed with the most is exploitation of the poor and caring for the poor. And not in the form of thoughts and prayers, but direct action. Jesus would freaking love Medicaid. I mean, a program that keeps 90 million of us, low income and disabled people from dying. I mean, this is exactly what the gospel calls us to do, to care for the sick, to look out for the less fortunate, to care for the poor. And that's why Republicans hate it. Now, I'm not saying that, like, we shouldn't have some standards over who comes into the country. Of course we should, but the Bible is the criminalization of migrants, calling them illegals, which is a racist, otherizing slur that you cover so well. I don't call them illegals, Cenk. I don't call them undocumented either. I like calling them Christian refugees because it tends to infuriate exactly the right hypocrites.
So we can go on and on. In my book, Justice Coming, I talk about how now these, the Christian right leaders, not the followers, are now follow a literal golden calf, the bull on Wall Street, right? The bull is golden and they're obsessed with it, and they are doing the exact opposite of what Jesus said. To your point about abortion, a lot of people might not know this, so you wrote about this as well, which is that in the Roe v. Wade is in 1973. Republicans don't run a single election on abortion, and the evangelical pastors are not against abortion until 1978. They wait 5 years only after the founder of the Heritage Foundation runs a campaign showing dead fetuses and winning 5 elections that way. Do they go, oh, right. Jesus meant he hates abortion, and that's why you should always vote for Republicans. Which finally gets to my question, John, which is,
that's how they did it.
Yeah. Now, I know why they did it. I know why the Republican leadership wanted to trick people into thinking the bull on Wall Street should be your God. You should love infinite greed. You should love the big banks. You should love all these things, right? But how did they do it? How did they get all these pastors in the evangelical movement to say the exact opposite of what's in the Bible?
Cenk, America is the only country in the world where our history of Christianity is completely entwined with a history of white supremacy. That's how we're the only country that began with this obscene Christian white supremacy, where Rome rationalized the Crusades, saying, well, we're going to do the opposite of everything Jesus said for Jesus. So we're going to slaughter pagans and Jews and Muslims, but for Christ, right? That's been the pattern of authoritarian religion. Christianity in America, well, we're going to do the opposite of what Jesus says and enslave black people and ethnically cleanse the indigenous people, but we'll force Christianity on them. And of course, being saved didn't save them. So they rationalize away doing the opposite of Christ by saying we're doing the opposite of Christ for Christ. But in the case of abortion, they at first, the most controversial thing about Roe v. Wade was how not controversial it was. As you pointed out, the evangelicals largely viewed that as a Catholic thing. Here's the fact that'll blow your mind. Jerry Falwell never mentioned abortion in a sermon until 5 years after Roe v. Wade. Throughout the 1970s, the evangelical right's main gig was that Jimmy Carter's IRS was trying to take tax-exempt status away from racist universities that still practiced racial segregation. Don't forget, Falwell, who, if you grew up Gen X, he was on the TV every night, hailed as this Christian leader. But Falwell was a vicious white supremacist who opened whites-only schools and supported apartheid and segregation. And they were going after Jimmy Carter's IRS when Jimmy Carter was taking away tax-exempt status from Mormons unless they allowed black men to have the priesthood. I mean, Ronald Reagan mentioned Jimmy Carter's IRS more than he mentioned abortion back in 1980. And by the time that you mentioned the midterms in 78, it began to test well. That was it. And through the 1980s, they got the followers of Christ to vote against everything Christ talked about by talking about abortion, which Christ never talked about. And it worked. If you told anybody by the year 2000 you were Christian, they believed you hated gays and you thought government should force rape victims to be pregnant against their will. And none of that garbage actually comes from Jesus, who again was against the death penalty, never mentioned abortion. They don't follow the Bible. It shouldn't be that hard to take this false veneer of morality away from them, Cenk.
Yeah, and so look, I don't want people getting thinking that this is particular to Christians, right? So in almost every country, in almost the leader, especially the authoritarian leaders, use religion and invert it, flip it on its head, and use it for their own purposes, right? So when they started using abortion, it was
always the fundamentalists, never the liberals, never the moderates.
Yeah.
It's always the right-wing fundamentalists that are ruining all the world's religions. Sorry, go ahead.
No, in that case, it's absolutely true, especially the leaders. Most importantly, the leaders are, right? Because the leaders are the ones that are was serving racial segregation when the issue of abortion first came up in 78, right? And now they're the ones serving Wall Street and corporate donors and power, et cetera. And so that leads me to my last question, John, which is about how much it hurts Christianity and the religion itself. Because as it turns out, I remember seeing these guys in New York. There was these Orthodox Jews that were against Israel, the formation of Israel, because they were saying, if you don't separate church and state, what's going to happen is the nationalism of Zionism is going to infect Judaism and hurt the religion. And it turned out, oh my God, they were so right, right? And so you see what's happened in Israel now, and it is like an extreme.
That's what the founders got right.
Yeah. So then my question is, how do you think, how much do you think it's hurting Christianity that these guys that have subverted it and kind of taken it hostage and kidnapped it and turned it for their own purposes, how much is it hurting, forget the state, how much is it hurting Christianity itself?
It's a great question, Cenk, because in the late 90s, what were we, like 90% Christian in this country? Now we're about 2/3. 2022 was the first year that religious participation in this country dipped below 50%. So people who go regularly to a church or a mosque, less than half of us. Now, young people are not being turned away from religion, and young people aren't running away from Christianity because they don't like the teachings of Jesus or God or Santa Claus or Noah's Ark. They're running away because they don't like the cruelty and the hypocrisy of so much of organized religion. And we see this with the right-wing churches. I mean, they have to be more right-wing because if you don't hate the immigrants enough, there'll be a more racist church down the block that'll take your clientele away. So they're all competing with each other to see who can be more frenzied and frothing. And those people are going to die out. I mean, if you're interested in Christianity surviving, then it's really probably very important to think about women, young people, and gay people, all of whom the church is going to need more than they need the church. And Cenk, taking care of the poor, providing health care, quality education, stewardship of the earth and the land and the water and the soil, of course, not interfering in other people's private sex lives. These are all really popular ideas with young people that are also really in line with the actual teachings of Jesus. So the churches have a great opportunity now. Go to the core, deeply progressive, populist teachings of Jesus and run with those and fight for the less fortunate. And we've got this Chicago Pope now who's kind of leading the charge for the Catholics on that front. Or align with power and beat up on the marginalized and punch down on the gays and the migrants and all the groups that Jesus commands you to love. I mean, I can see religion lasting if it becomes a movement more like the teachings of Jesus, but if it stays this mean little right-wing, white supremacist, tax-free clique, more and more young people are going to leave, and they're going to have good reason for it. Right-wing Christianity has nothing to do with Jesus, and every time Donald Trump talks about the Bible, an angel coughs up blood.
Wow. Okay. The book is called Separation of Church and Hate, A Sane Person's Guide to Taking Back the Bible from Fundamentalist, Fascist, and Flock Fleecing Frauds. And they fleece their own. And that's why
they do.
There's an uprising going on across the country now, across all political spectrum, beginning to question authority figures, including their own pastors, imams, rabbis, etc. Wait, are they really telling me what's in the Bible? Because I do remember reading that Jesus actually cared for the poor. And
And Jesus fought plenty with the conservative bosses in his religion too. They threw down on a regular basis. I mean, that's what the Jews do. They're not afraid to engage critically on scripture and debate and argue what it really means. Here, I don't know. The Gentiles are terrified to do it. And we have to do it because these people are trying to force a very narrow, right-wing, Jesus-free version of this religion on every level of our secular and cultural life. And we got to fight back. And even if you don't believe in the Bible, you can use it against these people.
Yeah. No, I want to use it to liberate folks as Jesus did. So if we did, 1% of 1% of 1% of that collectively, we'd be in great shape. And I mean, you want to talk about a populist who's anti-establishment? That was Jesus Christ, right? And he got crucified for it.
Yes, sir.
All right, John Fugelsang.
But you're either getting crucified or you're aligning with Caesar. So, and Cenk, let me just tell, if you're in DC, we're doing a live show that we're taping with special guest Mr. Glenn Kirshner this coming Wednesday at a Union Stage in DC, which will.
One of the things that has been very illustrative of the cracks is the Nick Fuentes issue and the fact that Tucker Carlson hosted Nick Fuentes, who is a white supremacist and a racist and anti-Semite. I mean, all of the ists and the isms, that's what this guy is. And if you just go online and look at some of the things he says, and you'll understand just what I'm talking about. The president, I asked Marjorie Taylor Greene about him, and she just said it's up to Tucker, and she distanced herself from his views. President Trump did not distance himself from Nick Fuentes' views. Listen to what he said.
We've had some great interviews with Tucker Carlson, but you can't tell him who to interview. I mean, if he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out. Let them, people have to decide. Ultimately, people have to decide.
Now, he did have dinner with Nick Fuentes and Kanye West at Mar-a-Lago, which he was reminded of. I want to show this. This is Nick Fuentes saw what the president said or didn't say, and he said this. Thank you, Mr. President.
I mean, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, for Trump to say, I don't know who he is come on. I mean, this is the leader of his party. This is someone who consumes so much media. This is something that has been dividing his base so intensely since Tucker Carlson had this interview. So that is just doesn't seem any bit of reality. But also, I guess, not a total surprise. But, the president also talked about, I had dinner with him and Kanye West. Kanye West has also spewed terrible anti-Semitic rhetoric, just like Nick Fuentes, and Trump didn't seem to distance himself from that.
But I think this is indicative of him not wanting to stop the fractures within the MAGA movement that are becoming wider and wider by the day.
Yeah, and if you remember during the campaign,
after that dinner with Nick Fuentes and Kanye West at Mar-a-Lago, there was a large freak out within Trump's senior staff trying to put in new protocols. I wrote about this in my book at the time. They were really concerned that people were getting to Trump, and they set up protocols to try to keep those sorts of people away from him. And so this, Jackie, to your point, this is convulsing the MAGA movement, the conservative wing of the party. And it's a concern because for Trump and the Republicans, because they've been so united behind him at every step of the way. And we're seeing so many fractures.
Yeah, and exactly. And the question, one of the reasons why it's so important right now is where is this movement going to go? And the fact that Tucker Carlson has ended up where he is right now, having people like Nick Fuentes and others who are really openly vile in some cases, in other cases just wholeheartedly America first and only America first, that really poses the question of where it goes.
President Trump last night weighed in on a festering issue that has caused something of a civil war within the Republican Party. It's about neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes and whether it's appropriate for prominent conservative media figures such as Tucker Carlson to platform Fuentes without seriously challenging his false and heinous views. This morning, a board member of the powerful conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, widely respected Princeton professor Robert George, announced his resignation from Heritage, calling for a, quote, full retraction after Heritage president Kevin Roberts had posted a video last month where he defended his friend Tucker Carlson and Tucker's decision to interview Fuentes. After days of this debate within conservative circles, we finally heard from the president on this topic last night.
We've had some great interviews with Tucker Carlson. But you can't tell him who to interview. I mean, if he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out. Let him, people have to decide. Ultimately, people have to decide.
The neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes replied on Twitter or X, quote, "Thank you, Mr. President." So there we have it. President Trump expressing no issues with neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes, who has expressed an affinity for Adolf Hitler and regularly traffics in racist, sexist, anti-Semitic filth. Now, some conservatives, such as Senators Ted Cruz and Senator Mitch McConnell, have criticized Tucker Carlson for his very friendly, lengthy interview with Nick Fuentes. Other Republicans have not been so blunt in their condemnation of Fuentes or Carlson, or even condemned either of them. Vice President J.D. Vance, considered the next leader in the MAGA line of succession, he's no stranger to questions about Republicans espousing anti-Semitism in the last few months, following the Young Republicans texting scandal, which was first reported by Politico, which included one message where one of the Young Republicans said, quote, "I love Hitler." Vice President Vance characterized those expressing outrage as, quote, "pearl clutching," and the vice president repeatedly referred to the participants as kids, even though the ages of the people in the group range from 18 to 40. Fuentes is, of course, a Nazi of a more loathsome order than those on that text chain, and he has a history of going after not just Jews, but Vice President Vance. He said a number of nasty things about his wife. Vance himself called Fuentes a total loser in a 2024 CBS interview before the election, after Fuentes attacked his wife Usha Vance and her Indian heritage. Here's just one of these vile moments. A quick warning to our viewers. This condemnation of Vance by Fuentes is not pleasant to listen to.
Now they're all in favor of a fat race mixer who's married to a Jeet who named his son Vivek.
Now, this week and last, I repeatedly asked Vance's office for any comment about this internal war about Fuentes, specifically about Tucker Carlson platforming Fuentes, and there was no response. This weekend, Vance did weigh in on something related to this issue. It had to do with another member of the Carlson family, Tucker's son, Buckley, who works for Vance. And he, Vice President, attacked just some rando on Twitter as a, quote, scumbag, because this woman claimed that Tucker's brother idolizes Nick Fuentes and questioned whether Tucker's son, Buckley, who works for Vance, is a vile bigot, too. We here at CNN have absolutely no idea if Tucker's relatives feel any way about Fuentes. But it is clear from recent Twitter posts that his brother, also named Buckley, supports Tucker's platforming of Fuentes. Again, in August 2024, a few months before being elected, Vice President Vance condemned Fuentes. But since then, since the inauguration, Vice President Vance has weighed in on these issues only to defend people using anti-Semitic or racist language. He certainly hasn't called any of them scumbags. So on this Republican civil war, on whether it's okay to platform Nazis or espouse anti-Semitism, President Trump has weighed in, as has Vice President Vance. President Trump clearly leaning on the idea of free speech to make his point. Yet at the same time, Trump, of course, has no problem trying to get comedians who make fun of him fired. Clearly, neither President Trump nor Vice President Vance are shy about attacking or insulting anyone they don't like. They have opted to not do so when it comes to Nazis like Nick Fuentes. At a time when hate crimes against Jewish Americans are only rising in the United States, the president and the vice president, when it comes to this civil war, they've made their views clear. They're not going to condemn Nazis. They're not going to condemn those who platform them. My panel joins me now. Thanks so much. Why is this so tough, Ashley Davis? Why, like, I mean, it, by the way, we should note, obviously, this is going on to a lesser extent at this current moment on the left as well.
Well, absolutely. I mean, listen, anti-Semitism in this country, I feel, has been at the forefront more so in the last 3 years than it has been in the, in my adult life. And I think it needs to stop. I mean, we have it on
on both sides.
Yes, we have it on the extreme left. And now, I mean, I think what the president was trying to say is I can't tell Tucker who to interview or not. I'm not trying to defend it, but it needs to stop. And also, actually, the same side attacks on Muslims. I mean, I remember when I was in the White House, President Bush, after 9/11, made sure we read the Quran. Yeah. So we knew that this was not a hijack on their religion. It was terrorist. Yeah. And this is the leadership of this country that needs to happen on both sides of the aisle. It's horrible.
Well, and also I think that what's this divide that's happening in the Republican Party, you haven't seen it before because everybody's been so united around Trump. And now you're looking at 2028 where Trump is not on the ballot anymore. And the Republican Party will need to figure out whether or not they're going to embrace Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, and that side, or whether they're going to speak out against some of that terrible language that you played right there. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. And how J.D. Vance goes about this. There have been a lot of Republicans like Ted Cruz and others who have spoken out, and you're starting to see these divides within MAGA really occur. And so I agree that they should speak out. And for Donald Trump to say, I'm not going to tell Tucker Carlson what to say or who to interview, I'm sorry, the man tells,
He just told NBC to fire Seth Meyers.
Yeah, I mean, that is constantly happening. He doesn't actually believe that people who oppose his views should be out there and should be interviewed, but yet he believes someone like Nick Fuentes, it's okay to interview. So I find that ironic.
But why do you think now, sorry for interrupting here.
No.
But why Jewish or not really, Jewish people in this country do not vote Republican for the most part. They mostly vote Democrat.
I think it's like 60-40 the last election.
But listen, I mean, the Republican Party has never, ever not supported the Israeli community, especially overseas, and Israel in general. So I just don't understand why we're letting ourselves as Republicans get pigeonholed into this conversation because, first of all, who would ever support Nazism or anything else?
Yeah, I don't know.
Once you're in position, the 7mm full-length nylon midsole eliminates platform fatigue for maximum.
From the very beginning, our side has been insistent that this matter must be handled very carefully and with utmost caution and care for the victims. We want maximum transparency. We have always been about that. We want every single person who had any scintilla of evidence that they were involved in the Epstein evils, they need to be brought to justice, and it should have been done a long time ago. We need to find out who those people are. But in the meantime, you have to remember there are real people's, innocent people's lives at stake here, and young victims who don't want to be dragged into this political game because it could hurt further what they've already endured. They would be made to suffer more harm if Congress is not careful in what we're doing. And unlike our very important work that's underway in the House Oversight Committee, the Democrat-led discharge petition would carelessly dump thousands of documents without proper protections for the innocent. I brought a chart in here this morning. I want to illustrate for you what we are concerned with. Now, I was a federal court litigator. The members of our House Judiciary Committee, Republicans in particular, have many of these concerns. You have Chairman Jim Jordan and attorneys like Chip Roy, who's running for Attorney General of Texas now. You have Brad Knott, who's a former federal prosecutor, many members on the committee. Andy Biggs is running for governor of Arizona. They're lawyers, and they understand that the way the discharge petition was drafted is haphazard and dangerous. This is why we have been opposed to this point, okay? And I could be here for a long time going through all the details of it, but the big concern we've all had all along is that the House bill, if it's passed in its current form and it was signed into law, it is dangerously flawed. And our problem and our frustration is there's no way for us in the House to amend it or correct these problems because the authors of the discharge will not allow it. And that's one of our great frustrations. Let me just very quickly, we have a legal document that the lawyers, we have all drafted to explain all this, but let me give you five quick, maybe the top 5 concerns about it, and there are more. But as drafted, the discharge petition, it fails to fully protect victim privacy. I'm going to read you an excerpt out of our legal document we put together to explain all this. Congress should give the Attorney General broader authority to redact all the victim information. The discharge doesn't do that. This would prevent the release of information that could be used to unmask victims who have chosen to remain anonymous. Now, you have some very brave women who have come forward and put their names and faces out there and done press conferences and explained that justice is overdue, and our hearts go out to them, and they are heroes. But you have as many as 1,000 women, by some of the accounts, who may be caught up in this. And the vast majority of them have not come forward, probably for obvious reasons. They don't want to be unmasked. But the discharge petition doesn't have adequate protections. It risks re-victimizing those who were trafficked and exploited. And the courts have recognized this concern, by the way. I'll read you a quick excerpt. On August 20th of this year, Judge Richard Berman, the Southern District of New York, issued an order denying the DOJ's request to release Epstein grand jury materials, noting, quote, names and identifying information of victims appear in the subject materials, unquote. Judge Berman then quoted a letter related to the victims' concerns, which stated the following, quote, transparency cannot come at the expense of the very people whom the justice system is sworn to protect, unquote. And importantly, the judge quoted a letter from one of the victims. In the proceedings, she is named as Jane Doe 2. She said this is one of the victims, quote, I beg the court to make sure it is of the utmost priority that in any sort of release, all and every detail that could possibly reveal our identities be redacted. The victims of Epstein's evils deserve that protection, and the discharge does not currently provide it, okay? Number 2, the discharge petition could create new victims, okay? Because it requires the DOJ to release information even in cases where the DOJ or the FBI has already reviewed it and determined it is not credible, it is false information. Doing this and requiring this to come out.
If you live in a Delaware zip code and have 0 DUIs in the last 5 years, listen carefully. I was an insurance agent for 30 years.
Could ruin the reputations of completely innocent people, such as those who have may just have known Epstein but knew nothing of his crimes, or whose names he exploited. Think of this, innocent people whose names he exploited and used to try to get close to his intended victims. Their names may be in these files, and they had nothing to do with this. And so by just haphazardly releasing it, you're going to destroy their reputations. Releasing information containing the names of innocent people would subject those innocent people to a guilt by association. It would create an entirely new group of victims who have no means to clear their names. That's a concern of Congress, and it should be. It should be. Number 3, the discharge in its current form fails to prohibit the release of child sexual abuse materials. That is a term of art. It's called CSAM, okay? It's defined in the U.S. Code. The discharge is so haphazardly written because, remember, it's just a political exercise for these guys. They don't seem to care about this, but they cited the wrong section of the U.S. Code. So when they say that we don't want child pornography to come out, child sexual abuse materials, of course, we don't want that released. They wrote this thing so quickly that they cited the wrong section. So you know what that means? It means that it doesn't really bestow any real legal authority on the Attorney General to redact those materials. And that would compel the DOJ to release that stuff into the public. Every single person in this room knows that's wrong, and you should stand against it. But that's what the discharge says. Number 4, it jeopardizes the future federal investigations of the United States. Why? Because the discharge only allows the Attorney General to redact limited portions of records that could publicly identify individuals who were promised confidentiality. In this scenario, you're talking about whistleblowers, you're talking about confidential informants who came forward and gave information and evidence in exchange for agreeing to have their their identities not revealed. Violating confidentiality, imagine the chilling effect that would have on future investigations. Who's going to want to come forward if they think Congress can take a political exercise and reveal their identities? Who's going to come talk to prosecutors? It's very dangerous. It would deter future whistleblowers and informants. And the release of that could also publicly reveal the identity, by the way, of undercover law enforcement officers who are working in future operations. Dangerous stuff, and they seem not to care. And by the way, I'm going to remind you again, we went to the authors. We asked the authors of the discharge to change this, and they said jump in the Potomac, all right? Number 5, national security concerns, okay? The discharge requires the Attorney General to release within 30 days, quote, classified information to the maximum extent possible. This ignores the principle that declassification should always rest, and always has rested, with the agency that originated the intelligence. Why? So that they can protect their critical sources and methods. It is incredibly dangerous to demand that officials or employees of the DOJ declassify materials that originated in other agencies, in intelligence agencies. I could go on. I won't be here all morning, but there's a lot of problems. There's also a lot of legal scholars, and I'm among them, who are concerned that that you've got problems with grand jury secrecy. We know Rule 6E of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure prohibits the release of grand jury materials, but the way the discharge is drafted, you can make an argument that it requires all that to come out, and that is a serious problem. Grand juries are not adversarial, okay? There's no opportunity there for cross-examination. You can't disprove evidence. You can't challenge the evidence in any way. And if Congress goes in and breaks that seal and just starts releasing sensitive grand jury materials and allegations like that, it raises a risk that the grand jury process will be politicized in the future. And that's a whole other danger that we could talk about all day. I'm gonna wrap this up and just say that Republicans support maximum transparency. We always have. The President of the United States supports maximum transparency. You've heard him say it in his own words. But he has had the same concerns that I've just articulated here.
This is the most advanced fleece ever invented. That's because bearskin
Tonight, Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren, a former Harvard professor herself, is calling on the school to cut ties with the former university president and current faculty member Larry Summers. That's because Senator Warren says that Summers cannot be trusted, that's her quote, after new details emerged regarding his close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. All of this revealed in last week's release of Epstein's private emails. Larry Summers served as Bill Clinton's Treasury Secretary, and in Barack Obama's administration, he was the director of the National Economic Council. These new emails revealed comments that Summers made as he also sought out dating advice from Jeffrey Epstein. That includes the morning of March 17th, 2019. Let's see these emails here where Summers and Epstein were exchanging multiple emails debating Summers and whether or not he should send a note to a romantic interest. Epstein argued to Summers that it would be, quote, bad form. Summers wrote back, quote, why bad form? Supposed to be face-to-face? To which Epstein replied, you care very much for this person. You might want to demonstrate that. A note does the very opposite. Now, the reason that exchange is notable and that we're pointing it out is because of when it happened. It was just 4 months before that exchange that the Miami Herald had published an exhaustive investigation detailing Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of underage girls. They continued to communicate, though, for the next several months. That includes on July 5th, 2019, when Larry Summers sent Jeffrey Epstein an update from his vacation on Cape Cod. The next day, July 6, 2019, was when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested for sex trafficking crimes. Now, tonight, Larry Summers told CNN in a statement that he is going to continue to teach at Harvard, but he will be stepping back from his other public commitments, saying in a statement that he takes full responsibility for the misguided decision to continue communicating with Mr. Epstein. My political sources tonight are Democratic strategist Alencia Johnson and Republican strategist David Urban. And obviously, you know, it's worth noting, Alencia, that Senator Warren and Larry Summers have clashed before in the past over policy issues and whatnot. But her saying, you know, this is someone who is very involved in Democratic politics, was reportedly going to be very involved in them doing a version of Project 2025 for Democrats. She's saying that the school needs to cut ties with him entirely. Do you agree with her?
I absolutely do agree with her, and not just because I worked for her in her presidential primary, but because, as you explained, the timing of this. It's one thing if Larry Summers was communicating with Jeffrey Epstein before the big investigation from the Miami Herald, but it's another, and he said he didn't know about it because there have been instances of that, right? Someone is charged for an egregious crime and people around him don't know anything about it. But this was very public. It was all over our national news. People in politics were paying attention to it and deep diving because of his ties to a lot of political figures. And so it is problematic that he remained in contact with him. And we don't see any evidence of him even acknowledging how wrong Jeffrey Epstein was. And so I agree with Senator Warren because if we think about his involvement, not only in Democratic politics, he is also a teacher at Harvard. And there are probably young women in his class. And I would be concerned about, whether or not he has the integrity to continue to be in those positions. I'm not going to sit here and say anything's going to happen to his students, but it is concerning that you would be okay with someone who has these accusations and you still continue to be involved in a teaching capacity.
So you think what he's doing tonight doesn't go far enough because he says he is still going to be teaching?
I don't think it goes far enough. I don't think we should continue to reward bad behavior, or even when you're trying to turn a blind eye to maintain a position of power.
Yeah. And David Urban, this all comes as we're seeing the ramifications of these emails far and wide. I mean, obviously, Stacey Plaskett, another Democrat, was also texting with Jeffrey Epstein during the Michael Cohen hearing. Apparently, a spokesperson for her confirmed that she was getting text messages from him that influenced her questioning, it appears. But David, this is also coming as for Republicans, for your party, there is a huge breakup underway between Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene. In part, she's criticized how they've handled the Jeffrey Epstein saga and this entire back and forth over the discharge petition. She was one of those 4 votes that came out initially and voted for this. When the president saying that she's a traitor and Marjorie Taylor Greene, as he called her, what do you make of that? Do you think that's all right, or do you think that's too far?
Building an API platform isn't just about developer speed. It's about self-serve access to infrastructure that helps teams.
Yeah, it's too far, obviously. Let me just say this. I don't think I've ever said these words before. I agree with Senator Warren, right? Like, I agree with Senator Warren and Alicia. I think that Larry Summers has to go. Not only was it his judgment very bad there, but this was a young woman who was a mentee. He was texting or emailing back and forth with Epstein about. And moreover, her father was a member of the Chinese Communist Party. So most likely he was getting played as an asset during this whole thing. So it's only the tip of the iceberg with the Larry Summers issue. But yeah, look, Marjorie Taylor Greene, like her, don't like her, love her, hate her. She campaigned for Donald Trump when very few people were. She was out there burning and churning. When, after January 6th, and Donald Trump was a lonely soldier, she was a foot soldier in the Trump war, fighting for him every step in every way. So I think it's a little harsh for him to say what he did about her. Look, I don't necessarily agree with her all the time on this vote. I think, bad news doesn't get better with age. If I had the White House, I'd have released it a long, long time ago and moved on quickly to something different. It's a bad PR move, it seems to me. I'm not quite sure
David,
who or what they're trying to protect, but it's never getting better.
Well, that's what I mean. I was talking to people who are allies of Trump's and White House officials who were saying they kind of did this to themselves because they could have just come out and supported this from the beginning instead of, they brought Lauren Boebert into this Situation Room to try to get her to change her mind last week. So it's not like they really get a lot of credit for this passing. I mean, it passed despite their efforts, not because of them.
Yeah, listen, I consider myself a huge supporter of the president's. I can tell you in 2016, when I signed up to support Donald Trump, you could fit everybody in a room, in a tiny room that was supporting Donald Trump. And so I just think this was mishandled from the get-go. I'm not quite sure why. Just get the information out. People campaigned on it. The president campaigned on it. Others did as well. The president and Republicans feel that they were, that for too long the mighty and powerful have been protected in this country, and this president campaigned on making sure there was equal and fair justice for everybody, the rich as well as the poor, and this feels a little counter to that. It feels like that someone's being protected that might not be worthy of that protection, as you see in these Larry Summer emails.
Yeah, and Alencia, I mean, just seeing this, you know, Mike Johnson was asked about this, the calling her a traitor. It is something that was unfathomable. I mean, after January 6th, there were very few Republicans who still vocally supported the president publicly. Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of them. And so to see this split has even shocked a lot of people inside their orbit.
Listen, I am all about people redeeming themselves and changing their opinion, but I believe in, as the good book says, you judge a person by their fruit. And so we have to see how Marjorie Taylor Greene continues to move forward, and also if she atones for a lot of the egregious things that not only she said, but supported, like January 6th and some of the things that she didn't hold Donald Trump accountable for. And so we have to see where she continues to be on this path, because she's talking a great game right now, but who knows what's going to happen when something else happens that comes out of this White House.
Yeah, Dana Bash had a really good interview with her on Sunday and brought up some of her past statements and whatnot. And she did ask for, or said that she regretted some of those things. Alencia, stand by. David as well.
She went on the View. She went on the View. How much better can she pleading for forgiveness?
Listen.
Design beautiful, effective emails like a pro.
Credits, tens of millions of everyone. Affordable Care Act tax credits expire next month, and Republicans are out of excuses. Because of the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, tens of millions of Americans are about to experience dramatically increased premiums, co-pays, and deductibles. In some cases, everyday Americans are going to experience their premiums increasing by $1,000 or $2,000 per month. These are working class and middle class Americans. Those increases will be unaffordable. Everyday Americans will be unable to go see a doctor when they need one. And yet Republicans continue to bury their heads in the sand and are unwilling to address the affordability crisis that is crushing the American people. This from a group of folks, these extremist Republicans, who spent all of last year lying to the American people, saying to everyday Americans that they were going to lower costs on day one. But we know under Donald Trump and complete Republican control of the House and the Senate, costs haven't gone down in America. Costs have gone up. Housing costs, out of control. Grocery costs, out of control. Electricity bills, out of control. And now healthcare premiums, skyrocketing, out of control because of Republican inaction and an unwillingness to do anything to make life better for the American people. The Trump tariffs have been a complete disaster. As we approach Thanksgiving and the holiday season, food costs are skyrocketing through the roof, and everyday Americans are experiencing thousands of dollars in additional expense. The economic policies of Donald Trump and the Republican Party have been a complete and total failure. That's why they were routed across the country, thoroughly destroyed by the electorate in state after state after state, because they've done nothing to make life more affordable for everyday Americans, and they've done everything to make life more expensive. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Earlier today, President Trump posted on Truth Social with regard, I'm trying to pull it up, with regard to the Indiana Republicans not redistricting their map, that Democrats are trying to steal seats everywhere, and we're not going to let that happen. I want to get your response to that. I also want to get your response to him saying we must keep the majority at all costs. How do you interpret that message, and do you believe that Democrats should fight back against that effort at all costs, or what lines are there for Democrats responding to this effort of Donald Trump pressing Indiana Republicans and other Republican state legislators to redraw their maps to kind of steal seats, as you've characterized it, from Democrats in 2026?
Yeah, we've made clear from the very beginning that as Democrats, we are not going to let Donald Trump and Republicans gerrymander congressional maps all across the country as part of their effort to rig the midterm elections. Why has Donald Trump launched this extraordinary and unprecedented effort to gerrymander congressional maps throughout the country? They're the ones that claim heading into this year they had this big, broad, beautiful mandate. Where is it? It was nowhere to be found on Election Day. Destroyed in Virginia, in New Jersey, in New York, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Mississippi, in California with Prop 50, up and down the ballot and all across the country. The reason why Donald Trump is in full panic mode is because he knows the majority in the House of Representatives is gone. And he's doing everything he can to try to cheat his way to an artificial victory. By the way, this same group of people, this is the lesson that they learned. We came into this year and everyone was talking about how the Democratic Party was dead. Really? As far as I can tell, in the House, the only reason why Republicans have their narrow majority right now is because they stole 3 seats from the people of North Carolina in mid-decade redistricting last year. That's the lesson that they've learned. Because their policies are unpopular, the outcomes are unpopular, they've delivered nothing for the American people. These folks have been a complete and total disaster. And Democrats are the ones leaning in to making life better for the American people, to driving down the high cost of living, to confronting the Republican health care crisis and cleaning up corruption so we actually can deliver a government that makes life better for the American people. So Donald Trump is in full and complete panic mode right now. And so he's lashing out at the people of Indiana, apparently, and beyond. Because these extremists didn't think that Democrats were going to forcefully respond. But I said it from this podium months ago when people were trying to suggest that Democrats did not have the capacity to deal with this issue. Guess what? We did. And now we've seen action in California. We're going to see action in other states like Virginia and Maryland and Illinois. We've seen action in Utah. We see a lawsuit in New York. We're going to continue to forcefully and creatively respond. It's not even clear that Republicans are going to net a single seat when this is all said and done. As a matter of fact, it might even be the opposite. And it will serve them well. They started this, we're finishing it.
Leader, Mr. Leader, 2 questions. One on health care. The president said over the weekend that he's had some conversations with Democrats about some type of direct payment plan, giving money back to people. Have you had any conversations with the president, or are you aware if he's had any conversations with members? And then secondly, on Epstein, the president also just said a short time ago that he might be willing to sign this measure if it clears both chambers. If that is the case, are you comfortable with whatever information is in the Epstein files if it involves or potentially implicates Democrats?
Donald Trump appears to have chickened out on the Epstein scandal. He's caved. It's a complete and total surrender. Because as Democrats, we made clear from the very beginning, the survivors and the American people deserve full and complete transparency as it relates to the lives that were ruined by Jeffrey Epstein, who was a monster, and all of those folks who were dealing with him. The wealthy and the well-off. And people who are going to be exposed in full transparency. That's been our commitment from the very beginning. and it's closer to happening this week. The House will act decisively, the Senate needs to act, and Donald Trump just needs to step out of the way and let the chips fall where they may. Now, in terms of the first part of your question, I have no idea what Donald Trump is talking about. I certainly haven't had a conversation with him. I have no visibility into Leader Schumer having a conversation with him. I don't know a single member of the House Democratic Caucus who has had a conversation with Donald Trump. These people continue to bury their heads in the sand and then lie to the American people. This is not that complicated. Time has run out as it relates to extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. The most viable path forward is for those Republicans, all we need is a handful, to join our discharge petition, just like a handful joined the discharge petition related to Jeffrey Epstein and those files. All we need is a few Republicans to join the House Democratic Caucus discharge petition, and we can extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for 3 years to provide the American people with the certainty that they need that their health care costs are not going to explode.
Clear Jeffries.
Hold on. Third row.
Thank you. Congresswoman Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez has moved to formally disapprove of Congressman Jesus Troy Garcia for his kind of maneuvering with his reelection bid. I'm curious what's your stance on that and whether you're telling Democrats to vote against formally reprimanding him.
I strongly support the motion to table that will be brought this evening, and I expect that it will succeed.
Clear Jeffries.
Thanks. Third row.
Do you think that the manner in which Congressman Garcia retired abruptly for only his chief of staff to take his place, do you think that was wrong?
Here's what I think. The American people are focused on the high cost of living in the United States of America. That's what they're focused on. The affordability crisis, that's what the results were all about during the first Tuesday of this month, when Republicans were select throughout the country. Because they had failed on the economy, and Democrats actually have a vision all over the country to drive down the high cost of living and deal with the affordability crisis that exists in the United States of America. As House Democrats, that's what we're going to continue to focus on. I do not support this so-called resolution of disapproval, and I strongly support Congressman Chuy Garcia. He's been a progressive champion in disenfranchised communities for decades, including during his time in Congress, and he's made life better for the American people. Thanks.
Thanks, Leader. You put forward a 3-year extension proposal for ACA subsidies. Some Republicans have put forward alternative proposals that don't go as far in terms of the time, the length. I'm wondering, would you be willing to potentially accept or work through a negotiation on a shorter amount of time frame, if you end up getting Republicans' support for something like that?
Time has run out in terms of the games that Republicans have played as it relates to extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Now, in July, Republicans rushed back to Washington. Why? So they could enact the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. In the same bill, they ripped $186 billion in funding from SNAP, the largest cut to nutritional assistance in American history. And in doing so, literally stole food from the mouths of hungry children, seniors, and veterans. And all of that was done, setting in motion closures of hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers. All of that was done in that one big ugly bill. Why? So that Republicans could reward their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks. And then they made those tax breaks permanent.
Extra absorbent, even for your messiest meals. Vanity Fair napkins. Elevate every day.
Roku's self-serve ads platform. It's easier than ever with Ads Manager. Sign up today.
Those massive tax breaks for their billionaire donors, they were scheduled to expire on December 31st, the same day as the expiration of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. But Republicans could not be bothered to keep health care affordable for working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans. These extremists are unserious. And they refuse to take yes for an answer over and over and over again. Leader Schumer put forth a very reasonable proposal a 1-year extension, plus a bipartisan commission to discuss what happens relative to health care affordability moving forward. Republicans rejected it because they're unserious. And so our proposal about the path forward is our proposal about the path forward, a clean 3-year extension.
Peter Jeffries.
Thanks.
Why should Americans trust you and House Democrats on the Jeffrey Epstein files when one of your own, Congresswoman Plaskett, was found to be texting with Jeffrey Epstein during a hearing, getting information from him, using that in her questioning during a congressional hearing, and at one point he tells her, "Good job."
This is a bipartisan effort to make sure that, consistent with what the survivors have requested, that there's full and complete transparency, and every single predator who may be in those Justice Department files doesn't escape accountability.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. New York City Councilman Chi Osei filed paperwork today to run against you to represent Brooklyn. He has said that Democratic leadership has failed to effectively fight against President Donald Trump. What's your response?
Come on in, the water is warm.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. I wanted to ask, Representative Burchett and Speaker Johnson alleged that Democrats blocked the UC last week to release the Epstein files. Any comment on that? And did Democrats block that unanimous?
I have no idea what Mike Johnson is talking about. He didn't pick up the phone and call me about a damn thing relative to the Epstein files. This guy has been blocking the release of the Epstein files for 7 or 8 weeks. The House has literally been out of session. Republicans have been on a taxpayer-funded vacation for 7+ weeks, refused to swear in Representative Adelita Grijalva. Why did they do that? Because they knew she would trigger an up or down vote on the release of the Epstein files, as she has now done. And we're supposed to believe Mike Johnson's crying wolf now, saying all along it was Republicans who wanted to release the Epstein files? Give me a break. It's not serious. These people are not serious. And we shouldn't tolerate the fact that they continue to lie to the American people on all of the things, on all of the issues. Their lies is what has gotten them in trouble. It's the reason why Republicans were beaten like a piñata on Election Day across America. And why Republicans are going to lose control of the House of Representatives next year, as I predicted earlier this year. Thanks.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. So there's been some backlash over the shutdown ending, people calling Democrats cowardly or spineless. So I wanted to ask, ahead of midterms, what's next for the party from here?
Who has suggested that? And who have they said that about?
There's been a lot of...
I'm just asking for the sources. I can't answer a question unless you actually give me the sources so I understand the context of what you're talking about. Was that directed at House Democrats?
It's directed at House Democrats, Senate Democrats, Democrats in office. There's just a lot of online murmurings on TikTok, X, everywhere.
Online murmurings on TikTok and X aren't anything that I can respond to. What I can respond to is the fact that Democrats in the House, partnering with Democrats in the Senate, have waged a courageous battle on behalf of the health care of the American people, fighting to protect Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, our hospitals, our nursing homes, our community-based health centers, and the fact that it's Democrats who believe in this great country of ours that access to high quality and affordable health care cannot simply be a privilege that is available only to the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. Health care has to be a right that's available to every single American. And the American people know that we're on their side in the context of that health care fight. And by the way, Democrats have been winning elections despite all of the exaggerated news of our demise since January of this year with the special election in Iowa. That was in January in a district that Donald Trump had just won by 21 points. And then we won a special election in New York by 30 points. In February, a special election in Pennsylvania. And then we won a special election in Wisconsin, a state that Donald Trump had just won. That was in April. And we won it by 11 points. In Wisconsin, a swing state, that never happens. In April and then in May, we won a special election. In Omaha, defeated a 3-term Republican incumbent, elected the first African American ever to be the mayor of the all-American city of Omaha. On and on and on. Since January, what do you not get about what's happening in America? And the fact that the American people have rejected Republican extremism, and over and over and over again, time and time again, through the most recent election, embracing Democratic candidates, the Democratic platform, and the Democratic Party.
Our House
Sorry, Devin, and then
Obviously, there's no commitment at this point for any sort of action on this Epstein bill over on the Senate side. If it gets a veto-proof majority, if we're talking 100-some-odd Republicans and they don't take it up over there, what does that tell you? What is your reaction?
Well, I think it's going to be important for Senate Republicans to follow the lead of what is going to be a strongly bipartisan vote in the House. Obviously led by Representative Massey and by Rowe. And I'm thankful for the leadership of both of them. But it's going to be strongly bipartisan in the House, and it probably will be a veto-proof number, certainly given the fact that Donald Trump has just caved once again, spectacularly and publicly, and now wants to pretend, lie to the American people, that Donald Trump all along has been interested in the Epstein files released. Really? Literally, just a few days ago, you summoned Lauren Boebert to the Situation Room to try to continue the Jeffrey Epstein cover-up. Think about this. This is where we're at in America. John F. Kennedy, who created the Situation Room and was in the Situation Room in 1963 during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Bill Clinton, in the Situation Room, dealing with the tragedy of the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. President Barack Obama, in the Situation Room in 2011, during the successful raid on Osama bin Laden in Pakistan. But in 2025, this is what it's come to in America. Donald Trump is using the Situation Room to advance the cover-up of the Jeffrey Epstein files. This is why Republicans are being rejected all across the country. These are both unserious and dangerous people at the same time. Thanks.
Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman is meeting with the president tomorrow, and there's talk of him coming to the Hill. If you had the opportunity, would you participate in such a meeting? And just in general, what's your response to him coming up here? Possibly?
Yeah, I haven't had the opportunity to formally review any invitation relative to a possible visit to the Hill, but you know, I'll review it in good faith, as we always do with respect to foreign leaders.
Do you have any concern, just given his involvement in previous years in the killing of the Washington Post journalist?
I look forward to having that conversation with Gregory Meeks and Adam Smith and Jim Himes about what will be the appropriate approach.
Thank you.
The clock's already ticking towards January 30th. Can you report on any progress on the appropriations bills? Are we making any progress on minibus 2? You know, the Senate's going to be out for Thanksgiving, Christmas. I'm just wondering if we're going to be facing another shutdown sort of scenario.
Well, our approach as it relates to the upcoming government funding deadline on January 30th is going to be the same as it's always been. We reject a my way or the highway approach. But we, of course, as Democrats, are willing to lean in to finding a bipartisan path forward to enact a spending bill that meets the needs of the American people in the area of health, public safety, and their economic well-being, which means finding ways to drive down the high cost of living and reverse the failed Republican policies that have made life more expensive in the United States of America. At the same period of time, the deadline that we're focused on, well in advance of January 30th of next year, is December 31st of this year. It's time for Republicans to actually do something to make life more affordable for the American people. And the path in front of us is to partner with Democrats and extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits so that tens of millions of people do not experience their health insurance premiums dramatically increasing to the point of unaffordability. Because if that happens, it affects everybody across America. In fact, I think the 10 states most impacted if the Affordable Care Act tax credits are allowed by Republicans to expire are West Virginia, Wyoming, Alaska, Mississippi, Tennessee, Texas, Alabama, South Carolina, North Dakota, and South Dakota. The 10 states most impacted by the expiration of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. So this is not a partisan issue for us. This is a patriotic fight to protect the health care affordability of the American people in the midst of a devastating Republican health care crisis that is ruining lives, including in rural America, all across our great country. Thank you all. Thank you.
If the president's name is not found in the Epstein files, will you accept that?
Opioid addiction gets between you and what you love. Once monthly Sublocade may help you move forward in your recovery. Sublocade, with counseling and psychosocial support, treats moderate to severe opioid addiction in adults started on an oral dose of buprenorphine or already on buprenorphine. Sublocade is just one dose that lasts all month long with no complete detox required. Buprenorphine should be started after the first signs of withdrawal. Sublocade may cause harm or death if injected in a vein. As an opioid, it may cause serious life-threatening breathing problems. Ask about naloxone for opioid overdose. Get emergency help right away if you're faint, dizzy, sleepy, confused, have problems breathing, seeing, or talking, or if naloxone is given. Don't take with other opioids, benzos, alcohol, or other drugs, including street drugs. This can cause severe drowsiness, decreased awareness, breathing.
How did we get here? Oh my goodness. So something I've played back in my head over and over and over again is, how did we get here, right? Like, how are these people this dumb? Has this always been the case? All right, has it genuinely always been the case and I've just been oblivious? Where people have just been completely just drooling from the mouth, just dumb. Actual dumbness. Because that's what I'm experiencing. And what really triggered me was this interview, right? I don't even call it an interview. It was a question that was given to Trump. And obviously the hot topic right now, for some reason, is still the hot topic, is the whole Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes interview. And it was brought up to Trump, and the reporter asked, hey, what do you think about what's his name? Tucker Carlson's position in the Republican Party. He interviewed an anti-Semite, Nick Fuentes. What do you think about that? And I'm just going to play his response.
To the formula, yeah. Mr. President, Tucker Carlson recently had a friendly interview with anti-Semite Nick Fuentes. Tucker Carlson, what role do you think Tucker Carlson should play in the Republican Party and the conservative movement going forward?
Well, I found him to be good. I mean, he said good things about me over the years. I think he's good. We've had some good interviews. I did an interview with him. We had 300 million hits. You know that. What? We've had some great interviews with Tucker Carlson. But you can't tell him who to interview. I mean, if he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out. Let him, people have to decide. Ultimately, people have to decide.
Now, upon hearing that response, upon hearing like his first sentence in response to the question, people are somehow taking his response and going, hey, this is a W. Oh my God, totally base. He didn't disavow Nick Fuentes. Oh yeah, that's right. Never disavow, never play their game. And that's the first half. Then, of course, you have the free speech nuts who are like, oh yeah, Trump is for free speech. That's what you do, free speech. My brain is melting. my brain is melting. What is going on with white people, okay? And I don't mean all I mean the white ignorance. Are you guys really this dumb? Is this where we are in today's society, where we have a swath of just really knuckle dragging, illiterate, unintelligent, low IQ, white ignorants who have the ability to vote? Damn. There is no way in God's green earth you can take what he said and see that as a W for Nick Fuentes. Oh, he didn't disavow Nick Fuentes. The man does not care. Did you not hear the first thing that came to his brain? He said, hey, I don't have a problem with, Tucker Carlson. I've always liked him. You've always said good things about me. We had, did an interview. It had 3 million views. He's not even thinking about Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson or the Republican Party. He's thinking about his ego. Are we not seeing the repercussions of this ego and this narcissism via Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of his biggest advocates, and her now, cutting, fracturing the line with the Epstein files, and now he's saying she's a disgrace, she's a lunatic. Does this not comprehend?
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
I don't know what to do, man. I feel alone. I feel alone, like I'm in the Matrix. Like all these people are just a bunch of dumb seals going, and I'm just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Do you think he cares about any of this? He cares about himself. Do you know? He cares about his family. He cares about the crypto and everything. You guys paid money to this fool and he rug pulled you. You put money into his Stop the Steal and he used the money to pay off his debt. How? Man, I'm speechless. I'm genuinely speechless at these people. Okay. This is genuinely like cult retardation levels that I'm unaware of. I didn't think it was possible to reach these depths when it comes to just unintelligence.
But Brondo's got what plants crave.
It's got electrolytes.
Building an API platform isn't just about developer speed. It's about self-serve access to infrastructure that helps teams.
They're seeing this as a W, and Trump is basically telling them, I don't care. They're grasping at straws upon him saying, that's what Tucker does. He interviews people, let them decide.
You yourself had dinner with Nick Fuentes at Mar-a-Lago a few years ago. What role should he play in the conservative movement?
Well, I didn't know he was coming, and he was with, as you know, somebody, Kanye. And Kanye asked if he could have dinner, and he brought Nick. I didn't know Nick at the time. And he did. He came along with a few other people. He brought a few people with him. Meeting people, talking to people, like for somebody like Tucker, that's what they do. People are controversial. Some are, some aren't.
Bullshit!
He doesn't care, fam. It's not that he's saying, oh yeah, Tucker's fighting for free speech and, you know what's going on with the Jews. They have control of the country. Nick Fuentes, he should be. That's not what he's saying. But these people are so dumb. They're so dumb. And they're looking for anything to get like a plus, a thumbs up, anything, some type of approval. This is how they've completely lobotomized a good chunk of the white community.
He's out of line, but he's right.
No one's going to do anything about it. Listen, all the white elites, okay, I know some of y'all watch the show. All the white elites, they will destroy the country. And I know you think you have a plane trip to go outside the country or go under the country, go to a different planet. Listen, that's going to get old very quick. It's going to get old very quick because that problem is eventually going to get to wherever you are. I understand it may be fun. It may be a power play and, gaslighting a bunch of, low IQ, poor white people. But that's going to have a negative impact on the whole world, on the planet. Do you understand? When people are seeing an interview and don't have basic comprehension skills and can't take into context what this man has done previously, how he's solely and exclusively about himself, and see this as a win, bro, we're cooked. we're deep fried, dunzo. There aren't enough black people to save this country this time, okay? I know y'all needed us in the Civil War. I know y'all need us in the World War I. There aren't enough of us to save this country, fam. Y'all gotta do something.
And mankind became stupider at a frightening rate.
And then for the people talking about freedom of speech, are you, I should stop asking rhetorical questions of, are you dumb? Because I already know the answer. Yes, that's the answer. Freedom of speech, we are literally coming off of Trump getting Jimmy Kimmel off the air and then threatening them when they brought him back on the air. He was trying to target other late night comics simply for telling jokes. This is the same person who signed multiple executive orders curtailing free speech on behalf of Israel. What are you talking about? Free speech? Free speech has to deal with the government. When it's literal actual government issues such as, Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel and the rest of them, you guys go on like seals. Yeah, get them off. When it's actually a free speech issue. But when it's someone, I guess, platforming a person that you think is good, even though he's espousing just hatred and non-factual information, but because you like what he's saying, and other people like, well, I'm not going to have him on my show because he's, a racist, he's an anti-Semite, he's a bigot, yada, yada. Then you go, free speech. Bro. They poisoned these people, bro. They have poisoned these people. If you genuinely want to see what it looks like, because I know many people want to say, the government has completely destroyed the black community. They tried to attack, but no. To be fair. Yes, that's true. COINTELPRO, constant massacres. I hear you. But if you genuinely want to see firsthand experience on mental brainwashing, I'm talking about some.
Did you know magnesium is one of the most important macro minerals, even more crucial than calcium?
Furious gaslighting. You need to take a look at a good chunk of the white community. You go some of these flyover states. You go to some of these remote locations, okay, where they have 1,000 people, bruh. You go in some of these places and you will see government, you will see what the government is capable of. Because these people are 1 + 1 not knowing anything, but they'll tell you the Democrats is demons, okay? Trump is going to save America.
I voted for Trump and I'm sorry. I am uneducated. I grew up in public school system. Teacher and a principal told me, and I didn't question it, and I walked in a straight line, and I didn't use critical thinking skills, okay? I didn't read Project 2025. I have a disabled child. I'm a single mom of 3. I believed what he said in his campaigns, and I fucked up.
So I live in Texas, and I'm pregnant with my 3rd baby. And I am pro-life. I always have been. There is no greater gift on this earth than a child. But I am kind of freaking out right now. And I'm starting to regret the way I voted, the way I've been thinking. And honestly, I'm scared for my life.
All I can say, I was a dumbass, voted for Trump only because of my beliefs. People around me encouraged it. I can think for myself, yes. But I felt at the time that was the better choice. Now I'm looking at it with everything going on. It was the worst decision I ever made.
But Brondo's got what plants crave.
It's got electrolytes.
We're at the point where you can have Bassett, okay, come on TV and talk about the reason why beef is so high is because the illegal immigrants were taking some of their cattle with them that apparently had diseases. So we had to cut off Mexican beef.
But what is your take on what you just heard? He's expecting $10 meat.
Well, Maria, the beef market is a very specialized market. It goes in long cycles, and this is the perfect storm. Again, something we inherited, and there's also, because of the mass immigration, a disease that we've been rid of in North America made its way up through South America. As these migrants, they brought some of their cattle with them. So part of the problem is we've had to shut the border to Mexican beef because of this disease called the screwworm. So we're not going to let that get into our supply chain.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
This is what they're saying right after they said they inherited the problem. They're just bold-faced lying to people on national television. And because they have lobotomized a good chunk of the voting bloc, there's nothing we can do about it. They've undermined our power to actually have an impact on the country because a good chunk of the voting bloc is their Neanderthal mindset, where it's black people bad, white people good, Republicans good, Democrats bad. And they don't care about the policy. They don't care how it negatively impacts them because their family will be starving right now. But if you tell them it's the Democrats' fault, they'll toughen through, right? They won't complain. Their child could be, taken away from them due to a school tragedy. But if you tell them, hey, the shooter was a Democrat, they'll be okay, right? They'll have, just anger, but like, oh, the Democrats, we gotta say. This is how the country falls.
Water?
Yeah.
You mean like in the toilet? Fourth.
It's just anger, but like, oh, the Democrats, we gotta say. This is how the country falls.
Water?
Yeah.
You mean like in the toilet? What for?
It's just, I don't know what to tell you. I feel like, I'm on a stranded planet with, maybe 10, 20 people who are intelligent. It really feels like idiocracy. And I really feel what it feels like to be just alone. Just like you feel like you're alone. You have goofies trying to do racist videos to get Gibson Go money. Then you have other people talking about a president who has made the country worse when it comes to jobs. This man already said he's for H-1B visas. Elon Musk said he would die on that hill. And in the meantime, between time, you're attacking Democrats for wanting to raise the minimum wage. You're talking about, it's the illegals are taking your job, but are also taking your SNAP benefits. So let me get this straight. They're working their asses off for jobs that you don't want, but they're also lazy and taking all of your government assistance. It's not making any sense. And the only way it can make sense if you've been lobotomized, bro. The only way it makes sense if you've been mentally conditioned to fit into this paradigm where you're always the victim. And that's what they've done for many white people. They'll always be the victim.
He's out of line, but he's right.
And what they managed to do is scapegoat everyone else. Scapegoat Democrats, scapegoat black people, scapegoat brown people. And I don't know if they'll ever, if it'll ever click, right? If there'll ever be a eureka moment. Hey, I'm getting hustled. I'm getting bamboozled.
Wait a minute.
When you start seeing the masses accept asinine reasons as to why they can't find a job, as to why the prices are too high, as to why they're getting kicked off of their insurance, what do you do? What do you do? Anyways, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you guys think. Whether or not believe Lucas, he's exactly right. Freedom of speech, okay? Freedom of speech. You never concede. You never disavow. You fight. Or if you don't believe, listen, you are fighting yourself into a depression, okay? Not even a recession, a depression. You're fighting yourself into homelessness. You're fighting yourself. You're finding yourself where little Timmy can't even get a job, much less have his white family that you all keep on LARPing about. You're finding yourself into not being able to have housing and living with your parents, and then their parents living with their grandparents. You're fighting yourself into extinction. But I guess more black people in Chicago, right? Woo! Anyways, if you happen to disagree, you know where to find me. Thursday.